Donna's ready to go, so about 30 seconds, I have the
Thank
thumbs
you.
up. Alrighty, we are ready to go. Tonight is Thursday night for a change. Boy, I got to get something wrong when I do this. Thursday night, April the 10th, meeting of the Advisory Committee, and since we have a quorum and the time is a couple of minutes past, I will call the meeting to order. Our main items on the agenda tonight are the budget. The KP School Committee will be here, and that will be about 7:30. About 8:30, the Elementary School Committee will be here, but perhaps later, because they have another meeting and their time is a little uncertain. But the plan is for 8:30. After that, we have a few articles to discuss and vote on. So that is our agenda. First up, however, though, we do have minutes of a meeting. And they've been passed around. Have you all had a chance to look at them as much as you would like? Then I'm...
Move we approve the minutes? Second.
Would you specify the date of the...
Sorry.
March 26, 2014.
All right. Move we approve the minutes of March 26. Second.
Was that a second? Moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the meeting of March 26, 2014, that would be. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimously approved. And I believe those are the only other loose ends hanging around. So I think we're ready to move into the budget. Jack, the floor is yours.
That would be great. And Mr. McGee offered to come with me tonight just to talk a little bit about capital. So can we just give you an update of our capital meeting? And Bob had some details that I didn't have at the capital meeting. So maybe, Bob, you can, if the chairman doesn't mind, you can sneak up here. Bring a comfortable chair. So I'll do the non-Bob stuff first, just to... I guess that Arthur and Dave were there as well, and we had a good discussion. We did go over a couple different components of it's I think it's 8, 9, and 10, if I'm not mistaken, on the warrant. So unfortunately, we don't have any cash available for debt. We've got some cash coming to the town that's because of Department of Revenue, those tricky laws and stuff. We've got some revenue coming in that from prison mitigation for 2 years, actually, and then some FEMA money that'll actually be available to us after June 30th when we certify free cash. But they have to go through that, according to the Department of Revenue. They're forcing us to have that go through the free cash process. So we don't have any cash available from our typical sources anyway for capital, so we're relying upon debt at this point, and we had some discussions about pushing smaller items that we would normally purchase with cash to the fall when we have free cash certified. So to cut to the chase, with debt, what we're talking about purchasing on the DPW, on the vehicles, I guess I'll talk about, is there's a backhoe, a John Deere backhoe, that is used by the Highway Grounds and Water Department, and it's a H22. It's $135,000. A dump truck, one of the I think it's 8,000 pound or 8,000 series vehicles. It's got 8,000 written on the side of it.
It's CDL. It's one of the largest dump trucks. We have already 5 in stock, just matching the other ones.
So we've got a 1980. Actually, and I didn't bring enough. I brought these for the capital committee, but if you want to flip through those, there's some. Arthur probably already has one.
I do.
And Dave, so.
Yeah, I have one.
Just pictures of the older vehicles. H16 is a vehicle that's from the 80s that, and I say this seriously, but it kind of sounds funny, is that the guys have all told me that when they use it, they tend to get a little lightheaded after about a half hour or so. So. But you can see it's outlined in that handout, and it's got a there's a substantial amount of rust going on. It's got the salt on the back of it. It's plowing. It's doing work in the summer. It's just a vehicle that we don't want to continue to sink money into. So that's one of the ones that we would actually take out of the service, and then some of the vehicles from the 1990s we would move to kind of a back second string, if you will, and use for doing work for what we call the municipal sanding, which is really responding to accidents and has sand on it all year round. So when there's an accident, there's an oil spill or gas spill, it responds to in that case with the fire department, and then they sweep that material up. But it's really shouldn't be used for sand, for snow plowing at this point, or the heavy loam or stone movement that they do. So that's the vehicle that we're talking about replacing. It's $165,000. And then the two police cars. Actually, I think I just wrote one police car there, but $90,000 is two police cars. We're keeping going with the Interceptor cars, and I think Chief Stone is thinking about two more sedans. He's purchased 3 of the SUVs in the past and 2 of the sedans, and at this time he wants to add 2 more of the sedans, which are a little cheaper to the fleet. And we talked about that, trying to keep that, at the Capital Committee, we talked about trying to keep that program going. Really, we're scheduled for 3 this year, but, we'll Band-Aid one of the cars a little bit, but we think if we keep 2 going, that'll keep the fleet in good condition, and we can move forward from there. On the other non-vehicle capital, the H. Olive Day sprinkler system, they've asked for $110,000, but they do have $35,000 in a previous article. I believe it's the playground article from a couple of years ago for H. Olive Day School. So we would transfer that at town meeting as a funding source, and so they're looking for new funds of $75,000. The sprinkler system is something they'd like to do this summer, obviously when the school's closed, and it's something that they've gone over with their facilities department, Bob Bullock from the building department, and obviously Chief Bushnell. I think actually he was the one that first brought this problem to light. Tasers, to complete the program, we need 3 more tasers, so Chief Stone's outlined $3,900 for the tasers. And then in your handout that I just gave you, there's some pictures at the end. It just shows you the garage at the DPW. And it shows you how many vehicles are parked in there, and there's no exhaust system in that garage, and we're just asking for $12,000 to put an exhaust system in there. I think Bob obviously knows this better than I do, but in the morning it's probably flooding his office with fumes as they're pulling the vehicles out in the morning. So that would be the Capital Committee. That's what we had. Some other items that we kicked around too, but this is what the Capital Committee is recommending that we go forward with at this point.
If I could just speak to that a little bit. So we met for several hours, just the Capital Committee scrutinized actually every item on the list. There was a larger list that we started with. This is sort of Jack and his team's reduced, given that this is debt, keep things going. We talked about kind of what's the minimum investments that we need to make just to maintain things, and things that we should really have to move on now, not wait until fall meeting, because if we push off the procurement of it, it would create a significant safety issue or some kind of a gap. Anything you wanted to add, Susan or Dave? Or?
No, that was
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Susan's on the committee too.
Yep.
Can you recoup any costs from any of the, the older equipment? I mean, is there anything that you can generate on that?
Yep.
Not quite sure how
go ahead.
it's disposed of.
Well, for the backhoe we're pricing out at like 134. It's coming in at around 112,000 right around now.
Yeah,
And after you buy the basic big piece of equipment, then you get an extender hoe, and then you look for a knuckling thing. So that
Yep.
goes up to the 135. So that's how you come up with
Sure.
that number. However, the backhoe that we have right now has got so much wear and tear on it. Pretty certain we can get $6,000, maybe $8,000 for it.
sure.
But until that gets in there, and for the purpose of, asking for the money now. I don't know what that
Oh,
is.
I understand that, sure.
And then the H-16, I'm sure we'll get some money too, but Paul will look at looking at getting just the metal, the value of the metal versus trading it in or selling it on, we'll put them up on the website and auction them off. It's kind of an
So that's
informal
how it's
auction.
done then, huh?
Yep.
It goes up, okay.
Yeah, and if the money come, if we get a trade in, obviously it reduces the purchase cost.
Right.
If we auction it off, it comes into the general fund as revenue, and it's,
Sure.
be subject to appropriation at some time in the future.
Yeah, okay.
I'm curious about some of the articles, the items that were pushed
Sorry.
off because you wanted to do them with cash. To me, debt is a reasonable option for paying for something that's got a life expectancy to it. You're talking, I presume, how long are you talking about bonding this stuff for?
I would,
This list, what do you think the debt repayment period would be?
no more than 5, probably 3 years in most cases.
So you're paying over 5 years for stuff that's got a life expectancy of 10 or 15 years in some cases. Some of the stuff you put off that you're going to pay with cash, I assume most of that has life expectancies probably more than the 5 years. So to me, to spread that out over 5 budgets and pick up some of those items that you may have deferred simply for the purpose of avoiding debt might make some sense.
I mean, we've got some of the things, at the DPW, there's some facilities work.
Maybe
Oh,
when-
go ahead.
This was kind of the combined cash and debt list.
This list?
Yes.
It's
yeah.
proposing
In
50-50.
terms of a recommended, it's not obviously the complete either needs, but it was the complete recommended list.
But I thought we weren't doing any of cash now.
No, we're not. We're gonna, so the article will solely be via debt, because there isn't any cash.
So which is which here?
They're just,
482, the whole, what's it?
they're all
the whole
debt. It's
482 will
just,
be
I
debt.
broke up vehicles and non-vehicles. Yes.
Okay, so I'm confused. I thought you said all the recommendations,
Well,
All the recommended purchases for this year are on that one.
when
So
this
initially
was,
we
Jack talked
discussed
about
some
things being
cash.
pushed off for cash in the fall. Those are the items I'm asking about.
Oh, sorry, that weren't on the list here.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably more of a question for me than the capital committee, because I didn't even present, I didn't really even do a light sell, if you will, of the cash items. I mean, radios for the police station, mobile portables. The tasers were one thing that I really would, I'm not really eager to fund those with debt, just because of the small cost, but, again, the mobiles at, $1,100 to $1,800 a piece, depending on which model.
Right. So you're not talking about any substantial items, you're saying? Just
Well, there will be 15 to 20 of those, so there'll be a cost of $20,000, but I just think going out to, my personal view was I didn't want to rack up a lot of debt when I knew I had $500,000 in cash coming in the fall.
and we also have
For
roads to
small,
consider,
okay,
too.
yeah, for
small
the
stuff.
smaller ones,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I'm just thinking of articles, if an item's going to outlive the debt, then it makes sense to me to spread the cost out. But if you're talking about items that are not going to outlive the debt that would be used to pay them, then I, totally agree. Cash is the way to go.
I mean, there's more things obviously on the list. There's facilities work at the DPW. We've got one bathroom facility, one male bathroom facility, and we've added staff over the recent years, so that gets to be a problem in the morning. So that's something that we'd like to add. A kitchenette we'd like to add, and those had some pretty significant costs in the, I think, 15 on one and in the 20s on the other, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, it's been designed and already laid out with the work that we already did to facilitate a bathroom. So that's the heavy cost, is about $24,000, then the kitchenette was only like about $6,000 or $7,000. But the plumbing that comes down from downstairs has to go through some structure and block wall, and there's kind of like,
Another one of the large trucks needs to be replaced, so that's another $165,000. And then the Michigan loader, it is past, that's probably 2 or 3 years past our original replacement date. So they're going to have to start putting some more money into that. So there are some big things I guess I'm just hesitant to go overboard with a bunch of borrowing all at once, or spending all at once.
Well, one of the
If you want me to
things
come
that-
back with a bigger list, I will.
One of the things that I was going to share towards the end is I think it would be helpful, maybe not tonight, but to have a discussion about the role of the capital committee, because it was very difficult from my perspective, and David and Susan can kind of chime in. It's like, I'm used to either, there's a committee which then is submitting the article, right? So, you know, you're proposing what the funding source is, it says on the warrant submitted by the whatever, or you're the advisory board who's then, you know, commenting on that or going to vote on that. The capital committee is kind of neither. It's like, we don't have a budget, folks just bring ideas. I mean, so we want to be helpful to either the advisory board or the selectmen, but they're really, it's hard without parameters to sort of say how much is enough. Several people ask questions about, well, like, are we trying to have like a certain monthly payment amount so we can fit in certain things that have a 10-year term, certain things that are 5? No, we really didn't, folks didn't feel like we should get into that. So is 20,000 too much debt? Is 100,000 too much debt? Is 500,000 too much debt? I mean, so that's, I mean, Jack kind of came in with a sense of what was proportionate. I know this year we're also trying the new road funding mechanism, which would also add debt, although it's not quite the same thing as vehicles. But it would, I think, help to have a discussion about what folks are looking to the capital group for.
More of a
Yeah, and I'm not sure
prioritizing.
who should have that discussion, but, yeah. I
And
mean,
then I figured the advisory board would be useful, the selectmen, those are the two that seem to,
because it
Anyway.
strikes me that, you know, you mentioned you had the items that you're talking about now that were not on the capital committee's list.
well, we
But
did
it
have a
seemed to
more
me-
expanded list, and then there was the short list.
Yeah.
So you submit to capital overall.
Yeah.
And then we
Department
just
heads
provide
to
input.
submit to you.
Yep.
Okay.
And Jack had mentioned that what some towns do is that the capital committee will actually hear a lot of stuff from the town folks, or from the various
heads.
department heads directly.
Right.
It has more of a, like a prioritization kind of
Right.
function. Like, and in one case, we did say, ask that a copier got moved to the water budget, and we added a second police cruiser, so we did get into some of those details, but is it more of a prioritization than rather a draw the line here function, you know, to sort of help with input for these guys? It could go different directions, depending on what the advisory group or the selectmen find helpful.
Well, I think the advisory committee's role is clear, and that is to discuss things that are presented to us by the capital committee, and what happens to get to that point is not something that I think falls within the domain of the advisory committee. So-
But strictly speaking, this isn't being submitted to you by the capital committee, this is being submitted to you by the selectmen, who are in no way bound by anything that we have to say about the matter.
I think that's a fair statement.
So
yes.
what do you want us to do
That
again,
is
is
a
kind of
fair
the,
statement, yes.
right.
Right. I mean, for years, we had no capital committee.
And I think there could be value there, I just want to articulate a little
Yeah.
more clearly what that is.
And from my point of view, you know, maybe we should have, some towns have a financial symposium or, you know, just a financial get-together, if you will, with all the interested parties, and the selectmen, the advisory committee, and capital committee. And we don't, you know, whether or not this is a finance committee or an advisory committee, you know, and I know by our bylaws, it's an advisory committee. But to come up with, I mean, to have that discussion about the capital committee's role, I mean, there was discussion on at the committee level, the capital committee level, about whether or not, you know, there was a need for the committee, or, you know, because now we have, not my words, but others' words, you know, relatively professional administrative staff, so, you know, maybe we should make the capital request to the finance
Okay.
committee, you know, to the advisory committee or the finance
Okay.
committee, so.
Let's table this
I
discussion
know, that's
for
fine.
another time, because we have to get through this, and we have heavy agendas. So procedural issues notwithstanding, from a financial standpoint, you're talking about what could be like another 250,000 or so that you're looking for to spend cash on in the fall. Plus or minus.
Somewhere in that, yeah,
Something,
yeah, a number,
And it
yeah.
seems to me like it would make more sense, given what can happen with snow and ice, given I mean, we wound up short this year, right? You're struggling for 160 grand, or we're struggling for 160.
Yeah, I found it.
And that to spread that, yeah, okay, but still,
Yep.
right, if we had that 250,000 in the fall, and we were only dinging 50 out of it for 5 years, it seems to me that's a less painful route to take than just because we have a lot of cash coming in, deciding we can spend a lot of cash.
How much are you planning on borrowing for roads? And is that?
It's 285, so, yeah, I mean,
Right, we're up to 760.
yeah, because I'm trying to figure out how
Another
much,
sheet Pat, he's
Yeah.
going to pass
Yeah.
out.
I'm trying to figure out the impact on the operating budget of borrowing, too, so that's why I'm hesitant to borrow too much too
But
quickly.
the cash is operating budget. 150 grand of it.
The prison mitigation can't be operating budget, so that's,
Right.
that's, by statute, that has to be for capital purposes, and so we could, you know. at least-
There's a chair behind you, yeah.
Okay,
All right, so,
I understand.
So
So
the-
this is only the prison mitigation money that you're talking about in the
Right.
fall that you're going to, you're thinking 2 years of it, which will be in the neighborhood of 400 grand or something, and,
yeah, 450 to upper 400s.
all right.
So the other sheet that I think you have, or Arthur's, sorry, I left it for Arthur.
Oh, sorry, whoops, I'm failing in my...
Two more sheets there.
I'm failing in my pass around.
Oh,
So this is really why we
you're missing
this is
your
Bob's
favorite
expertise. This is my shortcomings and Bob's grand expertise. So this is talking about the road projects.
Yes.
And this is a little bit different sheet than the capital committee saw. I think there's one adjustment on a number. So there's really 3 roads that we're talking about.
Here's the road.
And the concept of the article is, it's a new concept for town of Norfolk, is, or at least it hasn't been used for a long time, is to propose to the town whether or not we want to take on some debt in order to work on some major road projects, so that we can keep Chapter 90 funds for what we've referred to as the neighborhood roads. And, you know, I think to Bob's credit, you know, and there's been a lot of discussion around town about how great the DPW has done in the last few years, being able to get into some of the neighborhoods, you know, up by Kingsbury Pond and up in the Mr. Sterling's neighborhood, in the Indian named roads, neighborhoods, and really been able to attack a whole neighborhood at a time, and that's what we want to try and keep the Chapter 90 for if we can. So these are, and as Dave pointed out at the Capital Committee, if we are able to go down this route, this kind of puts back into the operating budget the $300,000 override that we had a number of years ago that
Over time.
was usurped. Yeah, over time.
Over time,
Yeah. So Bob, if you want to talk about the roads themselves.
Actually, before you get into that, also just to emphasize that the overall combined total of this spending equals an amount of continuous investment that Jack thought the operating budget could actually handle and seemed appropriate. True?
I hope. Yep.
Just in terms of being able to then chip away at roads at every year. So our goal is to start this spending, but also have this, once these are paid off, to continue with other roads that we would add in the future. Sorry, go ahead.
That's fine.
So the 3 roads that I brought to Jack's attention, and I easily could have put in 6 more roads, but you've probably driven down Park Street. And it needs no explanation. It's fallen apart, and it needs some repair and so forth. And with this thought process is that we're asking the town for Park Street and Main Street. The Main Street part that I'm talking about, let me just retract a little bit, is from, and there is a to and from here, it's from Seekonk Street, which we did over a mile of paving last year. So if we bring Seekonk Street, Main Street up from Seekonk Street to the old town hall, it's approximately where the town was rebuilt some 10 years ago, and there's a seam there and so forth. But at the same time, when we rebuild that street, if you look over on the church side, there's a sidewalk there, and the sidewalk's deteriorating. It holds an elevation, in some cases, lower than the street. It's not rebuilt. So if you can kind of model it after what we did last year on Rockwood, a short stretch from the railroad tracks down to the access road, we'd like to do the same thing there. Rebuild the street, not rebuild the street, I shouldn't say that. We look at the drainage, we mill the street, which means that we just, by machine application, take off an inch and a half to get a level and consistent foundation, and come back with 1.5 inches to 2 inches of pavement with some berm curb lines. there's like an 8-foot loom strip, and then there's the sidewalk that goes down there, so we'd like to replace that. So if you look at the spreadsheet that Jack put together here, what we're asking through the advisory board, capital committee, of the town funds, there's a town fund column there. But over to the right of that, you'll see that there's some supplemental money that I'd like to come up with Chapter 90. And then you can see the total on the right. So again, and the third one here, so we have Park Street, and I wrote Park Street down twice because there's two different segments of Park Street. One which is in, what I'd love to do is like take a street and just go from one end to the other, but if the pavement's in good shape, there's just too much destruction around town to have that luxury. So you break them up and it's called segments. So the two segments of Park Street is from, if going up Main Street, would be from Main Street over the bridge to, I identified a number 14, I believe. It's about 550 feet, but it's in the worst shape. And then if you go up a little bit further, the real bad part of Park Street is from like number 27 up to Eric Road, and that's like 1,400 feet, 1,465 feet. Add them both together, and we're asking for whatever that figure is, 69.5 or something, whatever that addition is. We just talked about Main Street. The third street is Lake Street. Lake Street is a street that that we've met with the residents on 3 different occasions, 2 different occasions in this office, with the selectmen, because Lake Street is a street that is environmentally very sensitive. It is an extremely high road, expensively high road to maintain because it's dirt. And if I could just give you the costs of what we've done just to keep that road together, and at the same time not help the wetlands out, because it just gets pothole ridden, and we come back with, in the wintertime, you really can't excavate in the frost, so you just add more gravel. Then the rain, the melt hits it, and it further expands the road at the base into the wetlands and so forth. The road is in desperate need of pavement, which would control the water, erosion, and eventually would realize the savings by paving it. So what we did was we brought the people in just to get a consensus of what they were feeling. Some people love dirt roads, and there are certain that exists on that street as well. But the overwhelming majority convinced us that the road should be paved. It's kind of like a win-win situation. So given that, and not having the money at the time, but being proactive with the meetings and so forth, we had, at no cost to the town, Norfolk Engineering come out and do they engineered the whole street. They found the correct center line, and they had to do that it was a lot of work, actually. It took them through a whole winter. With nothing on record, no control to go through, they had to take private properties to establish the center line. Private properties on each, so they kind of like found the boundary lines of each house, established the road. It's not too far off. But the road, this money that I'm asking for right here, and I just wanted, I wanted to be clear that it's going to take more than this to make that an accepted street. But right away, what we can do with this money here is have the road graded, put on center. There is one little land part where the road turns, it goes off onto private property. It's been used that way. So there maybe have to be some shifting there, some conversation with the homeowner at that particular piece. But this will be a reclamation machine will come down all within the confines of the road, not to go any further out than the shoulders. And it'll reclamate the street, bringing up the years of gravel. It'll be laid out on grade with the correct pitches. If it's paved, when we do pave it, our idea is to have the water roll off onto a natural shoulder, a swale, which will act as a sedimentation device in a sense, where we're not looking for any structures, no pipes or anything like that. Totally natural. That'll filter out the sand, the imperfect, the
Impurities.
the things that you don't want to go into the wetlands. And we spoke, we had the people in here, and it's in my opinion, that it's time to put up. There's no way to ask for money, but either that or we're going to have to go to Chapter 90, and if we go to Chapter 90, then the theory of going into the neighborhoods and these streets, because the neighborhoods, streets, as I call them, haven't been touched since they've been built, and some of them in the 70s have the same pavement there, and all we do is go out and patch them, and in that process we've become very good at it, but it's not the proper repair method for any of these streets. So that's it, basically, what we're asking for is Park Street, 2 segments of that, Main Street to include sidewalks, and a reconstruction of Lake Street.
When the capital committee reviewed this, there was a lot of discussion about Lake Street, and while the vote ended up being unanimous to then support this, evidently there are some significant, there's a minority of people, from what I understand, on Lake Street who really think this is a bad idea. So some folks expressed concern that the overall idea of this article, which is to get some capital sourcing for funds, why expose that to the risk of perhaps a political, a slinging match of some people want the road, some people don't want the road to then be paved. But we really felt that the pros seemed to outweigh the cons. Don't think the minority will necessarily sink the whole thing, and to just recommend they really do a presentation with PowerPoint and really emphasize the fact that we're spending so much on just maintaining the dirt, that this is really to save, money from an operating basis.
Got a question. How many residents live on that particular road, Lake Street? You don't know? I mean,
Quite a few. I'm one of them.
Oh, goody, okay.
It's, yeah, I'd say a majority are in favor of it, but there are a minority that are adamantly opposed to it. It is, I've been there for 22 years, and I've seen the deltas that have been created in the pond from the runoff that comes out, the roads, just as he said, that runs off during a storm, goes right into the pond, goes right into the wetlands, and it's a mess. I mean, environmentally, it's really a mess, and has been for, I mean, it's really changed, the whole road has changed over the years because of the amount of fill and they're down there very frequently trying to fix it, so it's, I won't vote on this article, obviously, but.
There's probably 20 or 30 houses?
Yeah, at least, yeah. I mean, it's
Bob, you said-
fairly significant neighborhood.
Bob, you said the 135 doesn't take you all the way to paving.
No, it doesn't take you all the way to accepted road.
Sorry, to an accepted road. But, so...
It does take you
what would-
paving.
It does take you to paving, okay.
Right. A binder course of pavement, there's 2 layers of pavement. This will be the strength course, the wear course. But what needs to happen down, that street there, to bring it up to acceptance, would be looking for $500,000 to get it done this year. What I'm proposing is to ease the pain, and you can drive up Lake Street and you'd know what I'm talking about. The street is carved into sidewalls, it looks like a canyon.
Yeah.
There's some historic value there. I don't know if it's historic value, I shouldn't say that, but there's stone walls that you like to replicate exactly where they are and put them back where they are. So to excavate back, to do a takeoff and relocate those stones would mean to remove the stones, dig out the sidewall, create some side sloping and some drainage, not into the property so far, because I think it's a 50-foot layout. I'm not sure, a 30-foot layout. It's not a big layout. So it's got to be done carefully. There's got to be some tree removal. And what I like to do is get it done, shaped, get the runoff taken care of, get it paved, and then go in there maybe over the next year or 2 years, working with the people, very selectively take trees down that need to come down and do the side slope. And it just start from one end and go to the other. Get into the wintertime, we'll pack it up and we'll go off, but at least there'll be pavement there, and there'll be no more damage done to the wetlands. And some of this process of creating the road would be to get a machine that would go in there that has the ability to sit in the middle of the street, reach down to the valley of the wetland and suck that stuff back up. So we're not on a piece of equipment with our tracks in the wetland pushing up. Everything's done from the road. It's done, I say surgically, but it's time consuming. So it's a sensitive area. So I can't estimate right now what it would cost when it's all done. Probably just the cost of a top coat after that, because I'd like to do a lot of the work ourselves in-house.
So it's not,
Are we effectively committed to doing the rest of the work if we start this phase here?
well, I think if I can say it a little bit different way, I'm not trying to contradict, but, we're trying to meet halfway in the middle, I guess, or, make everybody happy, and I'm sure we'll probably piss a lot of people off, but, we're trying to keep the road as simple as possible. So we're not building it to the planning board rules and regulations, with the granite curbing or, the 24 or whatever their official width is. So we're trying to keep it a very simple road. keeping it narrow so that it's not, we're not encouraging people to use it as a cut-through road, and that's to keep the residents, some of those, the anti-pavement people, keep them happy. So are we committed to more costs in the future? Yeah, but right now we're committed to a significant repair cost just to keep the dirt road going, so.
So you're suggesting the possibility, at least, that maybe this will never be an acceptance? That the...
It is a public way, and it is a town-owned property, but it may, I think we probably will get it.
Chapter 90 rule or not?
It's recognized by the state as an accepted road.
Okay.
I have a it doesn't get
So
the
you
state.
were using the word accepted there in a little
Yeah.
different context.
Accepted standards is what I meant to say.
Okay, there we go.
So
Okay.
this road would be at a completion date, just like Jack said, not blown out like a regular, specified street or anything like
Right.
that. It'll be the exception to the road, it'll go, maintain the same width that's already existing. But to be accepted with the state, I gotta believe that it was accepted by the town at some point, because it just didn't show up there. I think the paperwork got lost somewhere in the 30s or 40s, and the state has been funding that street, so.
Okay.
Just to emphasize too, Jack spent time explaining to the capital committee about how there are safety concerns about if this becomes a major cut through, kids and lots of folks who just kind of wander over there. That's one of their big risks from their perspective.
Just to make sure I'm...
The hairpin turn in front of someone's front door, that's staying or going?
That's
You were saying-
the sensitive area that Bob was talking about, I think,
Yeah.
where there's, the road has migrated a little bit, and that's a very sensitive negotiation there.
Right. Okay.
After the road's paved, the things that you're talking about with maybe speed cut through and stuff like that, there's some theory, maybe turn it into a one-way or something like that. That can be done after. But immediately, we need to
Okay.
take care of the environmental situation and get a binder course there. I don't know if we'll ever want to top course that, because could be fine just the way it is.
Just so I understand the financial setup here, this is intended here is to borrow this money to be repaid within the budget.
Probably over a longer period, though, than
What will be the term?
than the equipment.
Correct. Probably, I would imagine a 10 to 15-year period.
Excuse me, with regard to Lake Street versus, say, Park Street, is there a distinction between improving versus maintaining that is relevant? I mean, it seems to me this is a clear improvement relative to anything that has ever existed on Lake Street. As such, aren't improvements funded by the abutters in some cases?
With reference to Lake Street,
That also came up, yeah.
that's a subject for discussion. Right now,
So there was a discussion to be had there, and it's the selectmen's, so the discussion is, and then I can tell you what I think I've heard is no formal vote from the selectmen, but at least the commentary. So a new subdivision is built, generally the contractor pays for the costs, and that cost is shared amongst the people who are building new homes in that subdivision. There could be, and you could, in this situation, have an improvement on a road like this, and then have a betterment on the property owners. And the argument would be that, they've never paid for a road embedded in the cost of their homes, so they should now. The selectmen thought that since this road has been in existence for so long and treated as a public way, it's just, I don't want to say hypocritical, but difficult for them to go back at this point and say, you've been on a town road for however many years, and to ask you to pay for a road that the town has been maintaining for so many years is difficult for the selectmen to come up with that. It's a discussion point. I
think to add to that, it's because it's unique in that there really isn't that many dirt roads in Norfolk. I know in other communities, there's probably 12 to 25, and then you couldn't have one exception to the rule. So it probably makes it a little bit painless to do it this way.
I mean, I think, you know, the people, especially the people that are against the road, it would be a hard thing for them to swallow if, because they, you know, I've got other friends on the road too that, you know, they've said, well, we're going to have more traffic in front of our road now because it is probably going to be used as a cut-through. So why should I pay to have a detriment in front of my house? There is the improvement, they're not going to have to replace their transmission every 2 years, but it's certainly a better, it's a something that the town, we're eager to have because, you know, we send police cars and ambulances and occasionally fire trucks down there, so we would much rather see it be a paved road. Response time and also the wear and tear on the vehicles.
Somebody brought up that for many residents, this is a worsement, not a betterment. Thought that was cute.
And we had town water put in on my street. I'm not on town water, but I'm still paying for the betterment, so.
I thank you
You
for
know,
it.
that's
As a
the
water
way
customer.
life goes sometimes, right? It's,
Yeah.
if it's a betterment, it's a betterment, and you can't choose whether it is or not, so. But still, I mean, the arguments seem pretty strong for treating this an exception, but the opinions of those who would want to avoid paying for it, if the decision went against them, I don't think should carry much weight. It's just, should be decided on its merits.
That is another interesting point. When the road program used to exist, there was, in fact, a survey, I think, of the town roads, and I think you updated it at one point, or I'm sure you've seen it, but that prioritized the town's roads for a regular maintenance program that had some criteria for doing that. Really, there are two questions. One is I know it's been so long, so that old plan may not even be relevant now, but were these streets identified as priorities in that plan? And my second question, more of a procedural one, is the intent of the article to list these particular streets as part of the improvement program?
The pavement management is one that I started up. I came here, I went out, I did the survey, and I rated everything as it looked that point in time in 2008. To go back and take a look at that now, I don't know where Park Street, or that section of Park Street would fall on it. You're lucky to, it's still there, and you know for a fact that roads don't get better, so that's a consistency. But you do got to take off the roads that we paved over the last 5 years, and to that point, we have managed it. It needs to be resurveyed. I haven't had the time to do that yet. Right now, we've been fortunate that we've restructured our organization, and we have that expertise in-house. So I expect to pick that survey up again and make it good and current. And I don't know if we'll see it in 2014, but certainly by next year. So I can't tell you where Main Street fit in that rating category. It's called an overall index condition, the way we'd rate them, and Park Street. But sometimes roads fall apart not in order. You know what I'm saying? This one could be bad and something jumps ahead of it for whatever reason.
Makes sense.
It's just, and apropos the second part of the question, it's very valuable to have an objective criteria by which to grade things, and obviously you guys, there's no question that these streets are in bad shape. I just getting before the town and recommending 3 streets to be invested this year on a standalone basis and no sense of what may happen next or what could be delayed. I just think it's going to get into a discussion of why this street and why not my street. I would, presuming this article does go forward, I think it'd be very valuable to present it in the context of that plan. And so it not be hey, look at that.
Viewed as a one-off.
Exactly,
Yes,
exactly.
yeah.
And I think that would also be consistent with the commitment that you described to have an ongoing program, which I absolutely applaud. But I think that having that survey that you did
You're exactly right.
provides a very valuable guideline that everyone in the town could understand, or at least appeal to in prioritizing this kind of spending.
You're right. It's a great support document. It gives you gives you an exact look at the town. It also factors in current costs for the repair method. And you could, in my cover sheet showed a pie chart, and it showed the different repair methods, how much it was, and the exact total. That if we had the money to repave to rebuild everything in this town, how much it would cost all at once. The only thing is, we can't wait for the survey, and we know that these have shown up. They're like looking us in the face. If I get another call for Park Street, I'm gonna run away. And that's the only
was gonna
survey
call
that I
you the
can
other
pull
day.
out right now. Main Street's falling apart, and I know the investment, and I'm pulling it out of my pocket right now. But to support that argument, you're exactly right.
I mean, I think we'll certainly come to the town meeting with more data, and the other thing we can talk about is what the plans are for Chapter 90 funding this expense this summer. Right now, we're earmarked at $390,000 from the state for Chapter 90, so we'll talk about what projects we're going to try and get done with those funds as well, so.
To some extent, the names of the roads themselves help, because everybody knows Park Street and what shape it's in. Everybody knows Main Street and what shape it's in, and Lake Street, certainly the environmental issues there are very persuasive, even if you're not a frequent traveler on that road. So it seems to me that in the absence of a bigger context, at least there's still a strong argument to be made for these as specific choices. If you have the bigger context, great, but if not, there's a strong case that can be made for these on an individual basis, I think. We have King Philip coming at 7:30. I just want to take a check as to where we are as far as what you've got.
I have 3 more things I'd like to talk about, if I could. And
We
I
can
can if
certainly run a little over. I don't want to have people waiting too long from their appointed hour.
Then stop talking.
If I could ask, is the King Philip Capital part of that
No,
discussion? Okay.
not of my discussion, no.
The Capital Committee couldn't vote on the King Philip thing because the capital spending that they were proposing, because it just seemed odd to us, and we had no idea what
Yes,
to do
we'll
with it or why.
presumably discuss that tonight.
Okay. Oh, great. Hello, welcome.
Yeah. Okay, so, and how will we relate these to the articles and what the articles will look like? Can you? Right,
I would, we can help you craft some motions for, the roads are Article 10, unless I transposed that, and the other ones are, including the water debt, will be Article 9.
In 8, we will effectively IP. There won't be anything.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll have these articles. We have another meeting next Tuesday, and we'll have these articles fleshed out by then. That'll be our last shot at these.
Next Tuesday.
Article 7. Is that going to be a move to capital?
Which one's that?
We IP'd it.
We already IP'd
Jack,
it.
you want
Yeah.
there was a
Are
change
you
to
going to do
that,
something
too.
and move it into?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we're going to IP that, and we've got that in the operating budget, and then he's got 2 West Call firefighters coming on board, so we're all set with that. We don't IP it, we'll all be happy.
Good.
So, if I could just talk about the water debt, water capital, and this would be also part of Article 9, just a second motion. And I got to preface this with, I haven't been able to have discussions with the selectmen about this yet, so someone may throw something at the TV. So we're looking for 2 tank mixers. So the 2 water tanks, we're looking to have, looking at a couple different options, but putting some mixers in there just to stir the water and keep it as fresh as possible. A water service vehicle, and this is the one the selectmen will want to talk about a lot, is we need a vehicle, we've got, right now, we're running on an old Ford F-250 pickup, or an old pickup. And a van that was a hand-me-down from the Council on Aging. So this is a vehicle that they can keep generators in and keep all of their equipment in, so they're not constantly running back and forth between the road and the shop to get different things. If you've seen the Rentham water van, the water truck, this is of that type vehicle that we're looking to have them use. And then we need another copier and printer at the DPW, and since the water department, this was a discussion with the capital committee, since the water department hasn't contributed to a copier at the DPW, we thought they should fund a copier. And there is a,
$12,000, that's got to be a heck of a copier and
yeah,
printer. They're not,
That's what it is, I don't.
really? Wow.
Maybe it's 11.5.
Yes, we're underwater.
And these would be funded via retained earnings from the water fund?
yeah, there's about $500,000 to $600,000 in the retained earnings.
Right now, right.
And,
Debt or
No.
just pay cash?
no, just pay cash.
So that'll
the cash.
come close to wiping you out again. You're going to be needing money for some of the well work we've talked about at previous meetings.
We are, we're probably gonna want to save debt for that.
So having said that out loud, this would probably fall under Article 8
Right.
and not be part of the debt article. So if we put this under Article 8, that would be helpful. And then that way we only have one motion under each article.
Bob, the service vehicle, I mean, 100,000 seems like an awful lot for anything besides a huge dump truck, so what's entailed? I mean, it's a van, it's a truck, what, in either one of those, it's hard to
Jack
believe.
mentioned, and Rentham has a cab over, so you can go in there, and this truck's a little bit different. At first, that's what we thought the men would want. We have 3 guys on the payroll right now, all licensed professionals. We can go out and do a one-stop repair in almost any situation. But on this truck, you can thread rod, you can fix something right there as you stand over it. It's got a compressor on it. It has all the tools and compartments, and has, like, for instance, if we go out and we pave a street, I won't be long because I know if we go out and pave a street, there's castings out there, and there's thousands of castings, hundreds of castings at least. This truck can come out, we don't have to run back and get a compressor, we don't have to run back and get other tools. It's just an all-in-one type of truck that's got everything that we need on it. On top of it all, it made some sense to me today to hear somebody I just know somebody else just bought a Toyota for $60,000, and that's a homeowner. So the money's wacky. It's right away, 100,000 seems crazy to me too, but then it's what it is. And you know, we price them around. We have pictures from other towns, so we've gone all the way up to Danvers and found out what these trucks look like, what they use them for, and what they cost, and 100,000 is reasonable, unfortunately.
And how are we doing this work today? I mean, obviously, we don't have one, so.
We've got the old, the blue Council on Aging van that they use, and then a truck, which I should have brought my vehicle inventory with me, but the water truck, I'm thinking is either an 80s or a 90s vintage.
And we're borrowing from other divisions to, that's what we do down there to get by. So there's a van, and it came from the senior center or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's the old handicap van.
And there's an H5, there's a W5, it's called down there, and it's a 250, and if you sit in it, you can see the street. Not just a little pinhole, I mean, you can see, it's just in tough shape, so.
Fred's
I'm just wondering if there was 2 or 3 different types we could have gotten, and we picked, the Cadillac of vans, and a Ford van would have done just as well. I don't know.
There's another one that doesn't show up in here, but we're asking for a Ford 550 dump utility body. But that's just asking for too much maybe right now, so if we had our choice, this is the truck that's going to do it for us.
I mean, as I said, at the beginning of this conversation, the selectmen and I frankly want to vet this a little bit more, so unfortunately, the selectmen aren't meeting again until the end of the month, so I'm
Could
not
these
sure.
wait till the fall town meeting? Is there anything that's time sensitive in the 3 of them?
Tank mixers, I would think you would probably want to, if there's lead time, I don't know if there's lead time or not.
It's like we've gone 12 years without it. It's not like we couldn't go another year, but why?
Actually, just
It's
another
about water quality.
6 months is what's being,
Well, no,
Yeah.
and my questions are somewhat in the context of, we do need to do some major water improvements down the road, and if we eat up half of our retained earnings, then we're either,
Yep.
it just seems like we ought to think about it a bit in the larger context, or see what are the capital cost and what's the debt schedule for the water department, how that's going down. How does this kind of all fit in?
you've been adding to retained earnings at about $250,000 a year for the last couple of years, right? Couple 100,000, something like that.
Purposely, we haven't taken on any projects, and we've had some good luck. And so that we could be here today to have this discussion. Most of your questions, we have the answers to, we just can't pull them out. We don't have the time. And if you wait 6 months, and we're just going to give you what we already know. But I guess I'm trying to talk you into this without having to wait, but like I said, we've gone this long. If it makes good sense, we're on board.
My feeling is, you've got people that are paying a lot of money to do work. If they don't have the equipment to do it, then you're wasting a lot of that money. If they're running back and forth from DPW garage back to the site all the time, you've wasted a lot. So, to me, it's like, give them the equipment to do the job, so.
The one thing I do know about being in the industry is the $12,000 for a copy of printer scanner. I mean, that's huge. I mean, if you're a print shop, you're going to be using something like that. I mean, I just question that one item. I mean, you could cut $10,000 off of that and get a beautiful, something to do everything, called multifunction machines. You can scan, you can copy, and you could replace, I mean, you could probably get something, replace it every 3 years for under $1,000. I mean, I'll help you, I'll steer you in the right direction.
That would be helpful, and I don't see the rush, but did you say take 10,000 off that?
No, I said if you took 10,000 off of that, I mean, for $2,000, you can get something to, that would do it in crazy color, I'm just saying, I could
Really?
maybe steer you in the right direction. I certainly can do that.
That was my surprise as well. I mean, I know.
It's huge. That's a big,
Yeah.
big number. I mean, I don't know what companies you talk to, but there's companies that'll sell you, every bell and whistle that you don't need,
Did I ask Jack, do we know what that one costs down the hall?
I don't off the top of my head, no.
In any event, that's.
Yeah, I mean,
I
that's, I just
I
say
had the
that's
same
a
reaction. It
lot.
seemed
I mean,
like a
that
lot
10
for-
grand, it's 10
For
grand
what you can
right
buy
there
for
that I-
$1,000 or $1,500 now, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Unless you're really a major league user like
Yeah,
your printing
yeah.
center or something. As far as the other items, I mean, the argument of using cash now and deferring debt for later makes sense. We know that we're running on a pretty steady, at least we hope we'll continue to run on a pretty good $200,000 a year addition. Should fund some nice debt. I don't know that pushing it off 6 months would change the situation at all, so I would be inclined to favor these at this point as well.
In doing so, did I understand correctly, if we got this water service vehicle, it would free up resources for DPW that are currently being occasionally
It would.
used? And
Because we're always borrowing. Like I said, that's how we get by. We depend on one another, and the water department you'd often see them in H5. H standing for highway, W standing for water.
and what would happen to the existing vehicles?
Surplus. The van has any value, I'm unaware of it. Maybe you could get $3,000 for it, but surplus, you can either surplus it or you can scrap it. And we're actually talking to Jack at some point. You can do a combination of both, steal parts for what, that's why I like to buy, Ford, so we can take parts from it, and that's such is the case with dump truck, which I didn't get a chance to say anything there, but, no, I mean, but the W5 is, it's just worth metal, rusty metal.
Jack, you said you had three things? Was this
I have two now.
two now?
So Article 37 is the last one in your, and there is a debt schedule in your packet that breaks out debt, exempt debt, and water. Just, I don't want you to look at it now, but just so you can.
This is the building.
This is the building, so this is an article that was really put together today with the help of town council, and what we're looking to do is purchase a building that's been sitting vacant in Norfolk, down in Shire Development. It's about 16,000 square feet in total, and this came about because the Regional Communication Center is, we've had to move the Rentham Public Safety Building doesn't look like it's going to work because of space constraints. So we went out and looked at non-municipally owned properties, and this is one that came to the top of the list. So the the Regional Communication Center, or the REC, is looking at either renting this from the current owner or we are looking at, and what this article says, is trying to buy the property, and then using about 12,000 square feet for a police station, and then using 4,000 square feet that the town would then lease to the rec for the dispatch center. So what this article does, in a whole lot of words, is allows us to purchase the property, which we haven't even begun negotiations with, so there's no dollar amount here. But purchase the property, obviously we'd have it before town meeting, but purchase the property, hire a project manager, hire an architect to do a scope of services, do some of the site work that would be necessary because the rec is actually ahead of us as far as their designs. And it's just a big metal building. It's nothing fancy. And it would allow us, so this would allow us to have some funds to finish off the site work so that the rec can get in there. This fall, we would come back for construction money, and I assume we would go for a Prop 2.5 override or a debt exclusion to fund the construction.
So, we're going to have to cut this. We're not going to be able to get through this one tonight
Yeah.
unless you want to come back later tonight,
That's
which I
fine.
assume you don't.
Yeah.
Will this article go as it is without money attached? Does it do
The
anything?
motion will have the article will not have a dollar amount. It doesn't have to.
Okay.
The motion obviously has to have a dollar amount, and we generally try to have a dollar amount ahead of time for the motion, but it's not a requirement.
We do have a meeting on Tuesday. What's our,
No, Wednesday, next
no,
Wednesday.
next Tuesday, right?
Tuesday.
Or did that get changed?
It was
Tuesday.
Tuesday, the 16th? No, I thought it was Wednesday, the 16th.
16th is Wednesday, if that matters.
I think it's Wednesday.
Yeah.
Swap back to Wednesday because we were going to be
16th.
Tuesday and Thursday, but that got changed?
Yeah,
Okay,
so I think we're the
all right,
16th.
so Wednesday. Can we do this Wednesday, Jack?
Sure.
Okay. And your other, you had one
Just
more?
talk about the budget, but I can talk about that on Wednesday if you want.
Yeah, we'll have to let that go as well, because we have to cut through school. Again, unless you want to come back later.
No, I'm good.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks very much, Bob. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
And welcome to the King Philip folks.
Hi.
We very much appreciated your delivery of the budget this year.
Did?
Yes. Yep.
What are you doing?
That,
Paul, now you're bringing all the paper?
now we got paper.
Oh, my God.
Okay. Yeah, if those who are going to speaking would like to join us, most speaking anyway, everybody can speak.
Hey, does everyone need, so everyone needs everything?
I think so.
Okay.
So, these are the two, you sent me PDFs, do you want me to put those up on the screen?
Please.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
The rest of it is moved to the audience, too. So does someone have to manipulate this, or does it?
It does, unless.
There's just a little bit of
Jack,
paper.
before you depart, one quick question. We're going to be discussing, I think, probably those items that are in this one article here,
The
the
KP
KP capital stuff. Has
I
that,
think that's changing.
Yes, I'm bringing changes tonight.
okay, so we got changes tonight, but are we accommodating that in our budget?
No, that would have to be,
That would
we
be
would have to borrow for that.
added to our debt.
Yeah.
And have the selectmen voiced an opinion at this point?
You may not have to add, you may not have to add to your debt. We'll talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah, it may not be a debt issue. It may just be a approval so that, and then we would do it
Do
ourselves.
the borrowing.
What's going on by surprises?
Okay, sorry. But,
All right.
because we literally just got the numbers in, because they've been trying to work those numbers.
I was just asking because it would be hard for us to have a discussion without knowing what
Yep.
what budget considerations, we're kind of going in a strange order here, but
All I do is take it all slowly, recycle.
This one,
I leave it on the table so my wife can read it. She really loves it. Does it work in your family?
Yeah. I can't wait till I come
put those out on the chair. Okay, 2 more.
I went through that recently.
Oh,
Foxborough.
you know, it's, you're either a match or not, so I don't stress over it.
Thank you.
Educators in paper, it's, you know.
sometimes paper's good, and
I'll be there.
I was somewhere recently, and it was a classroom that had a chalkboard with chalk. I was so excited. It was like, chalk again, I can't believe it. It's been so long since I've seen you.
That's cool.
I kind of liked it, though, you know, it's a little bit, you know, you don't have the fumes.
Classic. yeah.
Classic. Although you're always trying to find the color chalk, and you record that because you wanted those color chalk.
I like the kind of pale purple, yellow, those colors.
all righty. Now, if our guest would identify themselves for our listening audience, please.
Sure, I'm Dr. Liz Zielinski. I'm the superintendent of King Philip Regional.
Paul Schaefer, Director of Finance for King Philip Region.
And Dave just indicated we have a member of the capital committee
Yes.
here, and you're here for these articles, so whatever you want to do for an introduction, but if we could get to the capital piece earlier rather than later.
Want to do
so
that
we
first?
We can do that first.
We can do that first, that's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. There are several things that are happening, and so initially what I applied or supplied you with is a copy of what I understand to be the current article as it's written, and we received revised language today from town council, from our council, I'm sorry. And then what I've also provided for handouts is a copy of a short presentation that was made to the school committee.
Well, subcommittee, and then...
Subcommittee went to
Fine.
the school committee I
Last-
was ill, so I did not attend.
It was Monday night.
Last Monday night. And then, and that looks like that. The purpose of the 2 capital articles, it mostly is number 1, to take advantage of lighting upgrades at the middle school that will result in significant energy savings for us. And I put in some pictures of the items that are potentially going to be replaced. There's a short slide, the third slide in, slide number 8, identifying what the needs are and what they intend. But the more important page is page 9. We'll get to the language after, because the language still may change.
Right. Could I, sorry, just a question on the language. Has the moderator approved this change? This seems like a substantially different article.
It's okay right now. Hasn't been printed in the warrant.
They'll just open and,
Fair enough.
Open and
They'll open
close,
and close it,
right?
right,
Yeah,
thanks,
yeah.
sorry.
I didn't know the answer to that question. So we have the reasons why we're doing it and the pricing. If you go to page 9 where it says investment versus savings, The main reason why we are rushing this is because if you look at where the estimated incentive, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth column over on the right, there's $176,000 worth of incentives that we can receive from NSTAR if we get the project accomplished by August 31st. Today, I received certification from World Energy that made the presentation that they got approval from NSTAR for those incentives. So those incentives are now in place. NSTAR also, as part of that package, is offering financing. So initially, where we thought we might have to, there was a potential of borrowing. Now, and I don't have the numbers yet because they're going through that mill. We will know hopefully before town meeting, but that potentially we will be able to finance the rest of the project through the budget.
Through the electric bill. yeah.
Through the electric bills, through it would be through the operating budget, through lease payments or whatever they want to call them, but rental payments. But so that we don't have to fund that through the town, having the town borrow the money. So that was the good news that we got today. The second item that's on your warrant article for capital is for the sanitary line water repair at the middle school. What has been happening is that we have had blockages in the sanitary lines that are underneath the old portion of the building where the flooring was never changed as part of the renovation. In some cases, the piping is actually 8 feet below the floor. The real heavy cost item is in the area of the auxiliary gym with the rubber floor. That's 8 feet down, and there's a blockage there. We have video cameraed every inch of our sanitary lines in the building so that we've identified all the blockages or potential blockages so we can replace them. The reason why that is going to be such an expensive repair, and we're estimating 150,000, what did I say? 125 to 150,000, including engineering costs to get this done. We won't know until we start digging in terms of what's there. The school committee has not formally voted, but I believe that there is a consensus that they intend to use excess and deficiency funds to fund this project. So basically, what we hope to be coming to the town for is the authorization to establish the capital account. And yes, initially, it looks like you are funding it, but you won't be because we will be. But the language has to be the same so that the account's established, the fund is established, but you won't have to be borrowing for it. So that's how much the language has changed since we initially even put in the first article as a placeholder, because we knew that these numbers were going to fluctuate probably right up until that night.
So if you're not looking for money and you're spending it out of E&D, I mean, you do that routinely as part of your budget anyway without any
But if it's
intervention
a
from the
capital expense,
capital expense,
it
we
must
have to-
be voted up
by
by,
the town.
by the town.
You
by
need
the
2 out
towns.
of 3 or 3 out of 3?
2 out of 3. This isn't a 2.5 exclusion. This is just regular. I'm under the impression that regular capital is only 2 out of 3.
Okay.
Regular capital.
But in any event, all you're asking is permission to spend E&D for a capital item, basically, and then you need to do that because it's a
Correct.
capital item, no other reason.
Right.
Otherwise, you could just do it and
Right.
And
We
for the
wouldn't
lighting
know anything
project,
about it.
initially, it would look like we are asking you to borrow, but that is not our intention. But it has to look that way.
Will the revised language be extended to include the lighting? Is the revised?
Yes, because
language-
when I got the language from the attorney for the
Got it.
sanitary repair, I didn't have the letter from NSTAR saying that we'd
But
qualified.
it's a model for both. okay.
So it will become a model for both.
Yeah.
So, that's our capital.
that's our capital, okay.
Why do you need to establish a capital account?
I'm sorry?
I just don't understand.
We have to have permission from the towns to establish the capital accounts for various projects.
Sir, to establish the accounts, you need permission.
Yes. So that I can assign monies to it.
Have you, in the past, you've spent money on capital items, and I don't recall.
One time,
And did it have a capital account?
no. Well, we set up the capital account but since it was being funded through E&D, we didn't think we had to.
And we learned later that we need to.
After the fact that we were supposed, even though it was being funded by E&D, we
okay.
have to have permission from the towns to
Towns.
establish the capital account. That was our in-ground, underground pool at the high school, otherwise known as the Big Dig.
$500,000.
$500,000.
$500,000 septic system.
All right.
So it's just a procedural thing, really, I gather.
Yes, it has turned into, it didn't start out that way, but it has turned into a procedural thing.
And the requirement that's coming from the state, they've advised the school district that if you're going to do a capital, you have to set up a...
Our attorneys have advised us that we
Okay.
will do it that
All
way.
right. All right. Interesting. Okay.
Okay?
Questions, comments? No?
Do we have to wait to vote on this until?
We don't have an actual
Right.
warrant article at this point. But hopefully we have all the information we need in order to make our decision when the time comes. Is there any, did you have anything you wanted to say? No? Oh, okay. Then I guess we can move on, because I think we've pretty well nailed.
The other single-page handout that I gave you, Tab, it's right there on top, it's a single page right there in the center. That's hot off the press from today. This is showing the effect of the House Ways and Means budget on King Philip. We get an additional, under their version, we'll receive an additional $19,000 in aid. But it's not in Chapter 70, it's in transportation aid, and it's in charter reimbursement. So I'll stick with the other numbers going forward till we hear otherwise, or see which way the tea leaves are floating. But I just thought for your information, you could use that.
$18,000 towards a $30 million budget. Huh?
Every dollar helps.
Okay. All right, what you have are two other documents. The first document, which is the blue with the school's photos on the top, is the same presentation that I presented at our budget hearing. I know certain members here were at that hearing. I will just sort of go through this fairly quickly. The next set of numbers, I think, are the numbers that you're going to want to see and know that these are the changes that have happened. So I just sort of want to set up the scenario originally. So we came in, and the school committee voted prior to our charter, which is February, I think it's February 14th.
14th, yeah.
14th, the approval of a budget, because is, again, part of the charter, and we tend to be the first one out of the gate. We have to create a budget where, based on the information that we have at that time, we have to create this budget. Our budget process really starts way back at late September, beginning of October. We have each department curriculum team leader come in to address the budget subcommittee, school council members, the administration, about what they see as their particular needs, current needs for the following year. And then also we ask them to do a little bit of, if you could have something in 5 years, what would you kind of like? Which usually it's good to hear. We love to hear. We sort of know a direction and we want to move there. Don't always have the funding or the finances, but I think it's important for people to hear that. So what we created for this after that initial go-through is we take back the requests, and administration sort of streamlines those requests with an eye to, we understand that the towns are still struggling to come out of this financial crisis. It may be a few more years, and we are really sensitive to that. So what we did is we create a budget that is a compliant service budget. That would be maintaining what we currently have as far as staffing and our contractual obligations, but also will we have to be in compliance. And if you don't know, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has been very, very busy issuing a lot of mandates. Most of those mandates are shockingly unfunded, and so we still have to comply with those. So, and one of those big mandates, as you know, is the cost of special education. So we're going to talk a little, we'll go through that. But as you can see here, there are the compliance pieces, the special ed requirements, contractual requirements, our response to Common Core as we move into that and the alignment. The park, which again, if you probably know, is field tested this year, the park assessment, which could probably roll out if the board votes on it in about 2 years officially. But that is really, we did a computer-based assessment, so all the technology that has to support that. District determined measures, which is part of the new state teacher evaluation system, which includes getting people together to look at the work and make those determinations. And other things such as retail, which is the second language learner requirement, where all staff have to receive an endorsement that they are certified to teach second language learners. The state will fund some of the training, but not all of it, and we're obligated to help move that along. All right, so the other one that really impacts us probably more than the elementary schools is a new legislation bill called 222, which is students, beginning July 1, any student who is suspended or expelled is entitled, whether they are special ed or regular ed, to continue their educational services, so that we will have to provide for students, for example, home tutoring, an alternative placement for them, no matter the length of a suspension, whether it's a half day, 1 day, or several days. New regulation. Again, unfunded. So those are some of the things that we're grappling with. So our concern is the potential impact, of course, of falling below the compliance service budget, which you've heard this before. We talked to you about this. Currently, our class size enrollment in King Philip is fairly large. The middle school averages between 28 and 30 per classroom, and the high school averages anywhere between 30 to 34 per classroom. There's a lot of kids in those rooms. As you know, we did take a bubble up that came up, where they're now in the high school. They'll be sophomores and juniors. And we have seen that our enrollment in general has begun to stabilize at the middle school. So we're not seeing these large increases. But because of the generosity last year of the towns, we were able to reduce and able to maintain and keep our lab science classes because there are safety issues if those classes do go over a large number. So again, I'm flipping to slide 4 and 5. This is our enrollment at the middle school. You can see how it's sort of levelized out a little bit here. And then on page 5, what you have is the main courses with the percentage of total classes with 25 or more. So, 44% of English classes have 25 or more students in it, and foreign language, 80%, and in history, 90% of all classes have 25 or more. And it averages out to about 28. So we do have some high numbers. We have worked really hard on the math to try to keep that number as low as we possibly can due to the changes in mathematics and sort of that educational piece being pushed down lower, so 7th grade doing algebra, in order to meet the Common Core standards. The goal there, just so you know, is that all students take calculus by the time they graduate. That's sort of how the Common Core set that up. So the next piece is a program line item summary. So these were the requests that we received, and what you see at the bottom is the total FY14 request. Here is the middle school at $186,000 for, and that's for textbook supplies, professional development, certain technology pieces, and other pieces. And the FY14 request was $177, so they really haven't gone up that much from last year with the requests. Then you have the high school enrollment trends. You can see we have our bubble is sort of there in the middle school a little bit right now. At the high school. And then you can see on page 8, the same piece, the class sizes that are 25% or more. Our art classes actually currently are running anywhere between 36 and 42 students in our art classes. Simply because the rooms are a little bit larger, but because of the high number of students requesting to take art, we can satisfy I want to call the lower end art classes, the intro classes, but we have students who do go to prestigious art schools and they want that higher level, and we may not always be able to offer that to them. Because we did cut an art teacher 2 years ago. We cut one of our art teachers. So you have those data. The high school, you have your program line summary. Again, if you look at the bottom 2 numbers, the FY14 total was $333,000, and the request for FY15 is $355,000. And that's for the supplies. The next piece is regarding our KP technology. And what I wanted to show you is, as we began to collect data, we run on a ticket system at King Philip. So if you have an issue with your technology, whatever that issue is, something very simple to something more complex, you put a ticket in. On occasions, if it's really an emergency, they grab someone, a ticket is still put in so that we know who, what, when, where, how, and so we can service on a priority need basis. And what we found is, as we have been building the backbone to go to one-to-one devices, although it's not officially rolled out, we have many, many students who are hitting our network, parents who are hitting our network. And we've ended up having a lot more requests. So you can see over the course of the years, the number of ticket requests, and just look at last year, there was 2,645 ticket requests, and that is from the time a ticket is put in to the time the issue is resolved. The average time it's taking is 18.8 hours. That's an average. Some are much quicker, and others obviously would take longer. As of the writing of this report on 2/1, we already had 2,138 tickets that had been submitted. So there's a lot more going on, and there's much more technology being used.
Excuse me, how many people are fielding these tickets?
We have a staff of, and so we have our director, we have a data specialist, it's 5 total, and we have a security person and then 2 technicians.
So a ticket could be anything, like, for instance, like, maybe they don't know how to use the program properly or something like that, is that
Could be
correct?
that, could be that, they're trying to log in and it's not working, or the printer's gone down, it could be anything, to a whole issue with a server going down and trying to boot everything, that kind of thing.
Have you looked at outsourcing that as a service?
We have looked at outsourcing, and we did that a year or 2 ago. We did a whole, 2 years ago. And it's not cost-effective because actually the turnaround time is much, it's not as responsive. And when you're talking about a teacher in a classroom who's trying to show a YouTube video to go with their lesson, and it's not working, you have 30 kids sitting there, you need immediate, so those are the things that immediately take priority over
So again,
things.
are they 5 dedicated people just to resolving, like, tech type problems?
Well, one's the director, one's
Sure, yeah.
the data specialist who does all of our they're in that department, but she will respond, because, as sometimes you have more than others.
But how many
respond.
dedicated people would you have just for responding?
I would
to
say,
tickets?
2. We have 2.
Okay.
That's on your first tier, or you said you had 5 staff, that includes the 2 technicians?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, so
yeah.
there's just 2.
There's just 2 technicians. Yeah. And then we have one who's really in charge of security, so we don't get
He's a network administrator.
network administrator, so we make sure that we are secure. So then what you have on 11 is the technology budget request. What you'll see if you went back into the request from the each of the buildings, you'll see technology. So certain technologies that are sort of department-driven. This piece is more the wide district. They carry all the licensing, renewals, hardware, that kind of piece. But specific programs, you may find that in those requests in the line items of the departments. And then certain departments are trying to, our computer labs are used constantly. They really want to go to the more mobile, where departments are using the portables, so that we have we have 2 carts now. There's a request for additional carts so that people can be on and using that technology. It makes it a little bit more user-friendly. Okay. You have the priority needs on page 12. The request was for an additional help desk technician. And anything here that you have that you see a price on people, that includes benefits. So the benefits are figured into that dollar amount. So you have that sort of total picture there. A NAC access controller 18 and a web portal 21. One of the goals in technology that we have is that students come to KP, and whether they're using their own device or one of our devices, they need to save their item, and often they save it, for example, to a flash drive, which, of course, inevitably, if you know middle school students, they get lost quite frequently. What we want to move to is an area where students can save it when they go home. They're able to access it and pull their document down at home and then continue to work on it. So if you want to call it the cloud or whatever term you want to use, that they can access it remotely anywhere. Okay. The next piece that you have on page 13 is a look at special education. And this is, all the numbers that you see are numbers as of October 1. So these are projections that we do. We receive our information from the 3 elementary school districts. We do a census, it comes into us, and we make projections based on whom they have as students moving in and who we know we currently have for where students need to be placed. And so what you see in the yellow is out-of-district placements. The green, and you see that green color has really grown, those are in-district programs, specialized programs that we have created. So in order to keep kids, not only to keep kids in, but to also bring students back, we have developed our in-district programming. This is very specialized programming. And the students that you would see in the green 5, 10, 15 years ago probably would have been an out-of-district placement. But we have developed those programs in-house to keep them in. And then the students in the blue, those are, I guess I would call them regular special ed students. These are students who need some supports, but for the most part, they're either included in the classrooms, they may only have one piece, or receiving not a huge, specialized, full-blown program. They need their supports, and they're receiving them through the different instructional models. But the green are definitely the specialized programs, and there's the next slide will show you, talk a little bit about that. And again, these are projected numbers, which have been revised, and we'll talk about that. So we have some, at the middle school, we have TLC, transitions, resource classes, and inclusion are what's offered. At the high school, connections, resource classes, and inclusion, we have the LINKS program. Just to remind you, we are obligated to educate students with special needs up until the age of 22. So there was a state law that was initiated a few years ago that if a child is 18 and receiving special ed services and they have earned a high school diploma but they feel that they're not ready, they can defer the acceptance of their diploma and remain with us until they are 22 years of age. And we have to provide an educational program for them so that they have the social and skill set, or have learned the skill set to be able to go out
Who makes a determination, because at 18, they're adults, right? Do they make the determination for themselves, or is it the parents?
Very often, in this particular population, the parents are still, have the primary, legally are the caregiver. You know, some of these students are significantly impacted, but the program I'm speaking of is one where we have job coaches, and they're physically housed with us, but they're not really in with the general population. They're going out to job sites. They're getting job skills. It's very different. And some of the students come at 18 and may leave at 20, because at that point, they feel they're ready to move on. And other students will remain with us till they're 22. And this program has grown considerably.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
How many at this point do you have that are over the age, beyond the high school graduation age?
Ooh. In that program, pretty much all of them. 17?
I was going to say 19, but that's...
Yeah, 17 to
Okay, so
19,
it's-
somewhere. It's a,
Not a huge number. Oh,
it's,
no.
no, but typically, those students, prior to us developing these programs, would have been out-of-district placed at a very large,
It's still very expensive.
very expensive. Not anywhere near as what an out-of-district placement would have cost. And actually, the collaborative has just recently developed a program like this for other districts to feed in, but we have our own. So, we do that. Okay, so there's some more. One piece on students, we're finding students are coming to us with more complex needs. And so we're servicing them, we're trying to keep them in district with a variety of services on a continuum to meet their needs. So students, again, that years ago would have been out of district. However, some of our students that are coming to us that are already out of district, and there are students that we have that are in KP, we do also have to send students out of district. We're finding there's a large increase in a lot of emotional disabilities, and those students need sometimes to be hospitalized, and that's a whole other form of special education, the hospitalization and that whole process. So there's a piece here on the infrastructure with special education. So teacher support, crisis management, program coordination, assessing future programming needs is really important. We work with the elementary districts. Our chair goes out and we do transition meetings. And very often we've sat at the table and talked about their current fifth graders. We go out and we need to look at these students in the classrooms because we must propose a program for them. It's part of our obligation to propose a program for these students. And so we need to take the information we receive from the elementary districts, and we also need to look at the data that we collect. Because we have to, every district of the 3 elementaries, they all have different programming, and our programming is also different. We are a middle school, we have 900 students. Some of these students are in self-contained classrooms of 16 and 17, going into a classroom of 30 students that change 7 periods a day. So the structure is very different, so we have to find the best way to support these students, and so to make their transition easier. And what happens often is we get information, you'll see this later on, information on students that we make our projections on. And then as we work with the families, and the child's like, you know what, I don't want a one-on-one, or I don't need a shared aid mom, I can do this on my own. And so some of those numbers that we project come off as we move forward. So based on the information we had, the request was for 6 one-to-one teacher aides based on our census. We needed 6 teacher aides at the middle school for the new students coming in. An increase of a full-time teacher at the middle school in special education, 4 shared TAs. Unified arts, we have a piece where we are we have a huge number of kids who opt for and go into the fields of science and mathematics. We really are a big STEM community, and we need to ensure that we are setting the groundwork for our children in STEM. And so what we're looking for is we're finding that our special ed students coming in are nowhere near ready for the science and the science classroom, and actually the history too. And there is a reason for that. And it's sort of simple, but in King Philip, when you come to the middle school, you have science 5 days a week. You have social studies 5 days a week. In the elementary school, there's a high focus on ELA and math, absolutely appropriate, and social studies and science are taught, but they're not taught 5 days a week. The level of vocabulary is not necessarily there. So we have to do a lot of catching up. For a child with special needs, if I'm a parent and my child needs some supports, you're not going to want to pull your child out of math or ELA because that may be where they're struggling. And you really don't want to pull your kid out of phys ed or art and music. It's the one place they really excel. So often to provide services, they may have to be pulled out of science or social studies. And that's what happens. And so sometimes we get our special needs students that come in, and they're even further behind. So we're looking to help beef up the instruction for our significant special ed kids, our inclusion kids, as we adjust our unified art program to really have much more of a focus on the engineering. So we do a lot of with the art, and we do have an engineer, but we're trying to really get that combined together to really push that. So there was a need there to beef that up. And the extracurricular support, we have our students, and as you know, KP is a very active district. There is something going on all the time. That high school is running 24/7 practically, and the middle school also. And our special needs students are entitled, as any student, to participate in the extra-school events. If their IEP calls for them to have support, such as an aide, we must also provide those supports by law to those students after school. And so that's where that funding comes from. And then because of the demands and the need to continue to communicate the level with special education and compliance, we do need to add another team chair. So that was that piece. Okay. Now, the next piece, as of October 1, these were the out-of-district students that we are receiving. So the projected number of out-of-district students from the 3 towns, so these are students that are currently out-of-district entering us, is 9. So that's 9 out-of-district tuitions at $834,000 that are being added to the budget. So the request for the 2015 compliance service budget was $29,491,553. The 2014 approved budget was $26,333,193 for a dollar difference of $3,138,360, or a percentage increase of 11.9%. Okay. And then if you go through, this is sort of the stepping through here of the our budget drivers, salaries, and you can see the differences from last year to this year. So salaries were up 3.4%, benefits 1.7%, for a total of 3.0%. Out-of-district tuitions are up by 43.6%. Transportation, 72.3%. A team chair, which is an add-on, which was 100%, would have been a 100% increase. The request on the teachers, the teacher aide, and the benefits, for a total increase of additional special education costs of 71%. The addition
The 3.1
of the 3 yes,
million,
yep,
something like 70% of it.
is special education.
75% of it is special ed.
Yep. Other budget drivers, we have our fixed costs. So regular transportation at 6.2, choice and charter assessments down by 7.9. I will let you know that it is the high school principal's desire to make sure that those are eliminated. We have, and we hear a little birdie telling us we are going to have a larger enrollment. As you know, some students from 8th to 9th grade may choose private or charter schools. And we believe that we're going to have a bump up. Not as many students are going to be choicing out or charter. So, just let you know that. Licensed servants agreements, 22%. Internet telecom, 100%. Let me sort of explain this. We were using, is it Comcast? It was Comcast.
We're using
Comcast.
now.
Comcast now. And before it was it Comcast?
It was
Different.
It was Broadview.
Broadview. And we had several issues with the fact that all of a sudden, everything would slow down to less than a snail's crawl. We didn't have enough bandwidth. And so after a lot of work back and forth, we are now running 100 over 100 for our broadband width. And we can expend it if we want, but we had to make a financial shift, and that's about $80,000 a year for the broadband, so to be able to run what we need to run.
We paid for this year, that's actually a lease payment, and for an annual lease payment with Comcast, we paid for this year's using last year's money. So we paid for it early. That's why it looks like it's going from nothing to 80,000, but actually, we've had the expense, but we paid for it using last year's funds.
The help desk technician, which I mentioned, and the benefits for 11.1 on the additional fixed costs. And then on the step 4, the other costs, administration services, 17.9, that is not administration salaries. Those are administration costs, such as legal. Those are the pieces that fall into there. Instructional services are actually going down based on the percentage. Other student services, 2.8. Operations and maintenance, reduction by 10%. Other changes at 2.5, so a total reduction there of 0.2%. And so here you have salary and benefits of current staff, special education, your additional fixed costs, all other costs, for the final budget request of $29,491. But what I want to point to you to is slide 25. Because when we presented this, we wanted to make sure that the public understood, again, we are first out of the gate, and that there are changes that occur. And so we knew that the health insurance premiums were budgeted at 5%, and we knew that there could be a fluctuation there, depending on when those healthcare premiums come in between 2 and 5. Regular transportation, again, 3 to 5%, and special ed could fluctuate between 55 and 71%, because we know that we're presenting a scenario based on what we have, and from that time on, we work with the elementary districts, kids come off the rolls, students, we bring students back, those kinds of pieces. So there are those adjustments, and I'm going to talk about those adjustments. Okay.
But this, to interpret this right, that you expect that your budget will be at least 30% lower than you expected? Is that what the right?
Certain areas, it could be. It could be, based on what happens as we go through the budget process. I mean, we have to create and present something, and then we continue to work it and whittle away at this. Every day there's new information, and, the governor's numbers and all those numbers that you don't have a firm handle on yet.
Is the last time this was modified 2-1 as it's listed at the bottom?
Right, that's the last time, and then this is
So you haven't
going to...
updated any of the figures
Not
based
on
upon any of
this.
your
No, no.
findings?
Not on this, but the next one, you will have some updated figures. Okay? So, again, the special ed piece here, just some information regarding who the out-of-district students are, what district they're coming from, and then the operating budget percent allocation. Again, those are I want to call it the older numbers. Okay, and the debt service on the back, which is going down, but, goes down very slowly. Okay.
Sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
26? Say again how we should interpret, for example, Norfolk's $630,000. What does that number mean?
So Norfolk has 5 students that are out of district. The tuition for those 5 students is $412,000. Their transportation is $101,000 for the out-of-district total of $514. Okay. The in-district students, those are students that are coming in that are requiring teacher assistance with them. They're in our classes, whatever their profile is, it depends on, partial inclusion or resource. But they'll need teacher assistance to $115,000 for 3. So the grand total of receiving students from Norfolk is 8, for the total amount of $629,000. Again, this was based on our information in February. That's just Norfolk, what we're receiving.
Right.
Those are our incoming 7th graders.
So the King Philip's costs are rising by around $630,000 as a result of students who are coming from Norfolk into King Philip's.
Right, that's just a
program.
special, right,
Special ed.
special ed.
Special ed, sorry.
Special, yeah,
ed.
special ed.
You may not be the person to talk to this, but is it fair to assume that Norfolk's costs at the elementary school level will fall by a similar number?
It depends, yes and no, because it depends on, I want to use the word backfill, but it depends on what students they may have coming up that need those services. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to go to this lovely, very boring black and white. Okay, so this indicates the first set of numbers at the top is what we received of a census of information regarding the students that we were going to be getting in, again, as incoming 7th graders. The census goes out in September, and it comes back around October. That's when we make our projections. So at that time, you can see the 3 towns, the number of students they had that were out-of-district placements that we were receiving, and what we would call in-district students. So these are students coming to us that already have an IEP. Then, as of March 12th, these are the students that have been discharged. So these are students who have been successful and are no longer in need of special education services. These would be 6th graders, so there's some students that have been discharged. What you need to understand is that When a student is discharged from special ed and they are not receiving specialized instruction, we are still obligated to follow that student for a year to make sure they're being successful. We don't want them to just falter. So we do keep an eye on them anyways, we do have to monitor them. But they're not receiving, they may not be, have be going to, being pulled out for a service. Okay?
What's the position that follows that person? Who holds that position?
Well, the person for the student, that would be a team chair. The team chair would be following these students, would be checking in to make sure that they're doing okay academically, checking with with their regular ed teachers, looking at the data. And the teachers do a lot of communication about, Johnny or Mary is struggling a little bit. What can we do to help them that may not necessarily be special education? Sometimes a student may need a 504 plan, just to get them through. But oftentimes, these students really have done well. Sometimes it's maturity. They've sort of gotten it, they've matured a little bit, and they don't need those specialized
Is that a
services.
state mandate that it's, to follow that student?
yes.
It is, okay.
yeah.
And the reporting responsibility goes back to,
The school, the school
okay.
who has the students. So these are students that are coming up to us, so that although they're exited from Norfolk, we need to follow them because
Okay.
they're all our kids, but we're going to be following through with them. Okay, and then students initially eligible for SPED as of 3/12. So there's a district who found a sixth grader eligible now for special ed services. Who'll be coming up with an IEP that wasn't on the books before. So the next piece here is sort of takes you through a rundown of the middle school, the IEPs. So current grade 8 students on IEPs is 49. Current 7th grade students on IEPs is 56, for a total of 105 students on IEPs at the middle school. So that was October. In November, it was 47 and 57, so the number went down by 1. And then if you take the current grade 7 students of 57 and our anticipated students, they'll be coming in, that's 79, for a total of an increase of approximately 23 students coming in with IEPs. And then the current grade 7 students, they're going to become grade 8, with the exiting grade 8 students. So we have an increase in grade 8 of 10 students who are being placed on an IEP. So grade 7 and grade 8 for a total of 136. Now, because there have been changes, again, the numbers fluctuate because kids come on, kids come off. We're currently looking at a total increase. Originally, it was 32 students additional than we typically have. We're down to 23 of sort of a little bit more students with IEPs. Now, we do tend to lose and gain students as we go with the IEPs, but when we're building our budget, we have to look at who we know as definites, and we have to make sure that we have the right staff in place to service those students. So we try to look at how we can, and how we group those students also, and how they go through the schedule. The next piece that you'll have is just sort of an attendance and account piece, but I want to point something out to you. If you look at the very bottom, you see the asterisk, and it says claimed by Easton. We often have students that are split between 2 households, 2 families. And if the student, for example, is an out-of-district placement child, we have to make, it's called an LEA. The state makes a determination of who claims and pays for that child. So in this case, Easton paid for and claimed this student this fiscal year. Next year, it's KP's turn to claim that student. That's how that funding works, because that also plays into circuit breaker, where you get some slight rebate on highly expensive placements. So I just want you to realize that sometimes there may be some fluctuation numbers because you have a child you're not claiming one year, but you're obligated to claim the next year.
When I look at this table, I'm struck by the fact that it seems like, if I'm interpreting the numbers properly, 1 in 7 kids is special education of one kind or another. Is that typical?
We actually, at KP, have a very low special education rate. The state average rate is about 17%, but you have to think about, you're also including urban areas, which tend to be a little bit higher. think the 3 elementaries, and I don't want to misspeak, I think they run about 12 to 13%, and KP has been running at about 11%. Because as we get these students, we're trying to, we get the students, we're trying to build that independence and get them off the books. So it depends on the child's needs,
And that total enrollment is 2125, that includes the special ed, right?
Yes.
So you've got almost 300, which is 1/7, which is like 14%
Yep.
based on this
Yeah.
table.
Right. And sometimes what you have here on the tables, because this is a state table, they carry over students that have already graduated, because the way they cut their tables off. So you may have students that were carried over from the prior year or prior half year. And don't forget, you have students that are on there till they're 22.
Yeah.
So out-of-district was another question, is how many out-of-district students? So we currently have 53 out-of-district students. We'll receive 9 incoming for a total of 62. And just for information, we projected 65. So we have to, when we built this budget, we had to give up a projection amount. So we have 6 current students in grades 9 through 12 who, due to an onset of severity, are likely to be placed out of district for 15. This is some severe emotional things. If you read papers, you know what I'm talking about. We have things that happen, okay? And I hate to say it, but sometimes bigger kids, bigger problems. It's just, unfortunately, it's the nature of it. So we had 68, and we have an anticipated 3 out-of-district graduates. So 3 students that are not out-of-district, hopefully, will be graduating. 1 out-of-district student will reach 22, but when we budgeted for their amount, we only budgeted to their date of age of 22, because we know what that student's placement is and the cost of that placement. And the 2 students out-of-district that could fluctuate are students who hadn't quite passed the MCAS and the out-of-district placement. So if they pass the MCAS, they may graduate. They can then still opt to remain. But sometimes it's not always, they want to go too, so it's a balance.
Excuse me, Liz.
Sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, only budgeted an hour
Okay.
for you guys, and we do have the elementary.
You got the elementaries here in the back.
You know,
so- Okay.
in retrospect, it would have been smarter, I think, to budget more time, but we are running
Okay.
against our calendar, so.
Okay.
I think
Can
special ed,
when we just jump to?
I think perhaps just jump into the
Okay, sure.
the budget picture would be a good
Okay,
idea.
so let's, you may want to look at, go to the last page. You may want to look at some of the other slides and information that are there. So what we did is taking that budget, let me talk to you about the reductions that we have made to the budget for the original 29. Healthcare premium savings came in at, I believe it was -2%. So we had a nice savings in healthcare. We recently found out, we budgeted circuit breaker at 65%, and we found out that circuit breaker is going to be funded at 70%, so we made that adjustment. Changes to regular transportation, reduction there. We had applied some, the funds. Again, working on the special ed students, changing a reduction from what was originally requested, a reduction of 4.5 of the paraprofessionals. Technology, we did do a cut of about $76,000 there. Instructional supplies, we have some money left in our current budget, and we are going to utilize that money. There are some things that we still have to buy, like labs and art materials, but use that money to now sort of pre-buy for next year in the supply line item so that we can reduce the budget by that amount of money. Out-of-district tuitions, we got word on some of those students, and so we are able to pull back on some of the out-of-district tuitions that we had budgeted for, and then also the transportation associated with that. We had one particular case where we needed to have a 6th section being taught. It would be taught by a teacher, but actually the student severity was to such a degree that it was that intensive. We had to pay additional for that. That student will not be receiving that service, so we had built that in, and that was removed. Prepay tuitions, this is the application of circuit breaker, which you can use to prepay tuitions, up to 3 months of tuition, so we've applied the circuit breaker to that. And the budget subcommittee made a motion, and the school committee did so, approved Monday night, to apply $80,000 from excess and deficiency funds to the budget. So what we're looking at is being able to come in under an assessment, potentially for Norfolk, at a Norfolk 4%.
Come in under is,
An overall.
right.
Okay, is that,
So if I look at the total requested changes back on your slide of 3.1 million, if I take 3.1 million and subtract, you're able to get $347,000 of extra savings?
we were able to get...
I'm trying to compare
Yep,
this to,
Oh, that, yeah. Actually, it's probably easier looking at right, because all
Oh,
the
okay.
scenarios are done right there for you.
okay,
So if you just go across,
okay, got it,
got it?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, instead of 29, okay.
So that gives you a 5.2%.
Change on the
increase
budget.
in the budget.
In the budget.
And we're still compliant, we're still compliant service.
That, usually the leverage, I mean, the fact that the state goes nowhere usually means that we're paying 7 or 8% in order for you to get 3, so.
Norfolk's the
Somehow-
lottery winner this year, because
Yeah,
look at the other two.
Yeah,
Right.
you are the lottery winner.
At 4 is Plainville at 9 and Rentham
Right.
at 7.6.
Right.
And I am assuming your color is, Rentham would prefer the 4.7 and Plainville is a little open to either of the 3 colors?
No, I color-coded it so that you could tie the vertical columns with the horizontal columns.
They don't have a colored, they don't have a colored one, though.
Yeah,
Sorry.
they did, I handed out.
Oh, you gave them color?
They should be
I got
colored.
black and white.
It's not colored?
I did it
I'm
all, though.
sorry.
The website. Sorry.
Forgot one button.
Wasn't in
on
the budget.
On the printer.
On the printer.
And as far as,
The technology cut of the 76,000, what percentage of the,
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
was trying to anticipate your question.
no, of our total technology spending, how much of that, of a reduction would that be of that?
Oh, as a percentage, I'm.
Brings it back down to like level funding about?
No, there's still,
little bit of
there are
an
still
increase.
expenses on the classroom side, but we were able to identify materials and equipment that we can purchase this year.
Okay.
Instead of waiting till next year,
All right.
and we can take those out of the budget.
Okay.
Before we conclude, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to publicly thank David and Scott Bugby for attending all our finance and budget committee meetings throughout the last 6 or 7 months, Dave. It's been,
Yeah.
It's been fun.
their insight and advice and questions have been very helpful in basically change the flavor and some of the scope of what we've been providing for information. And I wanted to make sure that we got a public thank you out to, because I know I personally have really appreciated their attendance at those meetings, and it was very helpful. And phone calls and emails later, they were all very helpful, and I actually was very thankful, and I wanted to publicly thank you, David.
You're welcome.
yes, we had also, is Karen Wolf, Norfolk?
Karen
also?
Wolf-
Yeah.
Karen
Oh,
was there.
Karen Wolf, she's been there every
She was there at
meeting.
every meeting also.
Yeah.
yes.
So you had a fair representation from
From
Norfolk.
Norfolk, yes, we did.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
this year. So that's
Which
good.
which is indicative of the support that we feel that we receive from Norfolk for KP.
I have to say, I mean, even, well, we're not in Rentham this year, so.
That's a good thing.
But it's, you know, even factoring in what the numbers might have been if we were not the lottery winner, the 5.2% is better than
Right.
we've seen in some years, so that's encouraging.
Yeah.
Questions, comments? No? No, I mean, it's still too early to ask this question, so never mind. All right. I think that does it then for us. Thank you very much, as always. We appreciate your coming here on your evening hours to enlighten us about the budget. And again, thank you for the big notebook. You know, we
Did you
really-
enjoy that?
We really liked it.
Yeah.
Every one of us, I think. was very happy.
Well, it came like that.
The thumb drive.
The thumb
Yeah,
drive.
flash drive.
Yeah,
Our
yeah,
notebook.
that's-
Oh, okay,
That big.
okay.
Yeah.
You were jesting, okay.
Big in content.
Thumb drive was
size.
perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Oh, just, and all this data.
Well, and
My head's gonna explode.
color version.
okay, judging from the size of our audience, the elementary school folks are here. So if whoever wishes to do the speaking would like to join us.
Oh, yeah, we have windows, I always forget.
Oh,
That's how you control heat in a municipal building.
right.
I know.
Times are tough these days.
Try to use that.
That's
to
fine,
show
yeah.
prep. It worked earlier today.
Arthur might not
so
like it,
we'll
but
see.
it's
I
fine
just
with me.
I'm good.
No, I just need to turn the TV on.
Oh.
Pull your microphone
closer,
Apple. I think your power button on this. Yours is not working. I think on this side.
Oh, on the,
Never going to hear what I say.
there we go. Power on.
And when you're ready to start, if you would introduce yourselves for our listening audience, that would be great.
Pat, while they're prepping, you made a reference to 5.2.
Thank you.
That's this number.
Did I slop off the?
No, he's right.
Yeah,
That's their budget
That's their budget, but our budget is 4.0.
4.0, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I move that we watch The Hobbit.
I second that.
Thank you.
I can't remember,
I'll
our
call
town's
you tomorrow.
budget, our town's increase, or any town's increase for that matter.
All right,
being
let's see
lower
if I
than
can
the-
make this magical.
Airplay
Technology.
action.
Office, Apple TV.
Miles got a benefit a couple of years ago.
Here's the other thing, it has to really swing hard against, or
All right.
hard in somebody's favor for it to happen.
I know.
The state's out of the game.
Where's the drama?
You've
Where's
got
the drama?
50% leverage.
Oh, every year.
Don't they
we
want to
usually have it.
cut physical
I know.
education, you know, they cut all the sports and all that stuff?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's awesome.
I don't understand how it happened, but
I know.
it's certainly easier. Yeah, exactly.
Don't-
Don't look, huh?
Right.
One second, and this should open.
So you gave us less paper, but there are more slides per page.
Oh,
The
was I
idea?
supposed to limit that? I'm sorry.
No, I just wondered, just.
I can't get it to
More
open.
slides.
It should just mirror your screen.
I know, I don't know. Oh, wait a minute, he said there was one other thing, it might extend
Mirror built-in
desktop.
display.
Nope, he said to
Maybe
go with
these are
extend
just one
desktop.
slide.
Maybe you
though.
should have to drag.
That's a wide screen up there. Oh, that one.
Mirror
Yeah.
display messed up the
How much time had you budgeted for this?
Well, they're last, so they don't have a time budget.
Well, I must say, I'm still interested, but it's.
I think it's actually, I think it's up
How
here.
does your meeting start?
We started at 6:30.
Got quite a while to go.
This,
Cover some territory.
that's close here. Where's your mirror display up there? No.
Newark.
Oh, no, I can sleep while there's nothing on the screen, that would be fair. Oh, darn, okay.
Now when you launch it, it should pop up.
Yep, right
Or
here.
you do it from the dock, whatever. Okay,
And you
so
can just
now
sit
it's
right here,
ready to play.
right over here. Right there? Yep.
So, Rec is going to use that building if we buy it? Is that a, that's a
I
given?
think it just dropped out.
Substantial amount.
Hold on, right here, hold on 1 second.
So that if the decision-making has gotten that far along?
Oh, I don't, I have no idea.
Oh, okay, I thought maybe you might know.
I'm on the commission in '91, so I know what the commission will do. The commission pumps lots of money up for these things.
It's gonna do
Millions.
Just do it like 4 times.
They're juniors,
Yeah, okay.
so they go
Well, people who are watching,
next year.
This is
more
the,
difficult.
So now I
that's it.
I want to look at it.
Play it, and maybe if we open it through
Jeff
PowerPoint.
Nutting, the
Yeah.
town administrator.
Final year
The other
baseball.
few weeks, I reached out to the town administrator.
Freezing cold outside. They're playing now?
If you would be interested in joining the rec.
Norwich.
Obviously, depends on the numbers.
that might be a good move.
So far, Beverly yesterday, at Endicott. So,
I mean, it's obviously a building that needs a lot of
great. Yeah, he's having a good year.
Infrastructure added to it, yeah.
Nothing to say.
Because it's just empty.
He's actually a son of Sunfield. He was a catcher.
The load is broken, so that's what compensates, but,
My chair, see if I start. See if I can get it up.
Oh, we have the backup.
Yeah, yep. All right, while they're working on the technical difficulties, I'm going to talk from the slides, if that's all right for you. I would have made them bigger if I knew I had to do that. So,
all right.
I'm Ingrid Alardi, I'm the superintendent in Norfolk.
Kelly Peterson, School Committee, Budget Subcommittee. I think I've met you, most of you in the last 2 or 3 years.
If you could, just either take that mic or get closer to that one, so
Sure.
the audience does not want to miss a word.
All right, so we're here to share with you the 2014-2015 budget proposal, and thank you for having us and fitting us in tonight. I know it's a little later than we planned. But the document that we're going to share does reflect, I think, the hard work and efforts of our budget subcommittee, which would be Kelly Peterson, Mark Flaherty, who's also in the audience, and Sean Dooley, as well as our business office, our business manager, Todd Hassett, and assistant business manager, Donna Chisholm, in the back, and Roxanne Verdell from the human resource side. So I think in order to frame the discussion, it's important to share with the committee that our budget decisions and our budget document is really driven by the district mission. And our mission statement I've included for you is to provide a safe and joyful and challenging learning environment that meets the diverse needs of our students, and through school, family, and community partnerships to provide an education that inspires lifelong learning and cultivates caring and productive citizens of the ever-changing world. The overview, we feel that the 2015 budget document is fiscally conservative. The funding that we're requesting will enable the district to maintain level services, and it will also help us to begin to restore some critical education positions that were cut over the last 6 years. The budget process, we began early in October the budget subcommittee began meeting to take a look at the budget assumptions. We looked at the anticipated COLA, salary requirements, grant funding, expectations, things like that. Our district leadership team also met several times to take a look at the current budget and really try to prioritize what positions we thought were critical to start the process of rebuilding and shoring up the education that we're able to provide. So we put together a prioritized list of critical needs for the budget subcommittee to review. And then the budget subcommittee reviewed that list of critical needs and also looked at areas in the current budget that we had potential reductions so that we could help offset some of those costs. We prepared the preliminary budget and had the public hearing about an hour ago before we came here. So I just wanted to include a slide that really reflected what the budget history in the Norfolk Public Elementary Schools and what that's looked like over the past 8 years. From 2008, we had a 1.13% increase. 2009 was 1.99. 2010 and 2011 were negative, so it was a negative 9.96 and negative 3.07 in 2011. 0% in 2012. 2013 was 1.59. Last year, at the town meeting, the town voted to appropriate 4% for the elementary budget. The 4.7 reflects the fact that in the fall town meeting, the town allocated another $100,000 to the elementary budget to offset the cost of that unexpected kindergarten enrollment. We had 35 additional students, had to add a teacher and 3 paraprofessional staff members. So that's the 4.7 increase that was allocated for last year. So just in general context, for the school district to carry over from year to year to meet the salary requirements, maintain program costs, absorb the increase in the expense side, typically takes about 4 to 5%. So just looking at the budget numbers gives you a sense of the fact that the district has steadily made cuts over the last 8 years. Last year was our first year that we were able to begin to rebuild. Coupled with that difficult budget history, I've also included a slide for you that shows what's happened on the federal level. Oh, look, here comes my budget.
On the way.
On the state and federal level. So back in 2009, we were receiving $631,550 in federal grant funding and almost $90,000 in state funding. That federal and state funding has been cut continuously over the last year. So while we're not seeing budget increases and actually had some budget cuts, we are also losing federal and state revenue. 2013 and 2014, the bleeding, I would say, on the state level sort of has stopped, and it seems to be stabilizing a little bit. But if you look, our last year's fund, we had $299,064 on the federal level and $60,000 on the state level. So even last year with the restoration of funds, we're at about half of what we were receiving in federal funding from 2009. In addition to that, we have several unfunded state mandates that have been passed down that we're required to meet. Oh, good. Hi, Mike.
They're slowly catching up.
They're
to you.
still, they're almost there.
They're almost there, yeah.
Next slide, and we're good. Next one. I don't know if everybody knows Mike Yang. He's our technology director. Thank you.
Evening, Mike.
Is he on the ticket systems?
Down.
Oh, but he gets all
All right,
the tickets,
perfect.
Arlie.
Okay. So in addition to that, we have some unfunded state mandates that we're required to adopt. So the first is the adoption of the Mass Common Core Learning Standards, which required significant curriculum revisions. For each subject area, we have to pay teachers to rewrite and revise the curriculum. There's materials costs, there's professional development requirements with that. So the total over the next several years is about $317,000. We're also required to provide retail training, which is a 48-hour graduate level course. We're required to have one teacher at every grade level at minimum have this sheltered English immersion certification, so that if we have any children enter the district that have ELL learning needs, we have somebody at every grade level that has that endorsement. We also have to train administrators in any school that may have ELL students. So the cost of that is close to $20,000. It's $17,280.
Looks like that's for 2 teachers per grade. Is that where the 12 comes from?
No, it's a minimum of one teacher per grade level, and you have to train the administrators of the building, so building principals, special education administration. Implementation of the new Corey law, requirement for fingerprinting for existing staff, just for teaching staff is about $5,000. And then we're also required next year to implement what's called district-determined measures to assess teachers' impact ratings on students. So in order to be able to do that effectively, we have to look at a software management system that's going to be able to house and store all of our internal state and local assessment data. We're going to have to provide training for teachers, and that cost is probably going to be close to $40,000. Down arrow. So again, what the revenue history means, as I mentioned earlier, on average, prior to the recession, most public school districts average about 5 to 7% annual increases in the budget, which allows you to carry forward, maintain services, and again, build educational programs. The 4 to 5 covers basic contractual raises, and increases below that do typically mean reductions in staff and program cuts. There has been a slight enrollment decline in the Norfolk Public Schools over the past 6 years. I think we discussed this last year. It was about 150 students. That did offset the budget, some of the budget cuts in the first year, but that doesn't carry forward once those cuts are made. So it did help the district in the first couple of years. The current kindergarten class, though, as we mentioned earlier, has increased by 35 students. So we had that unexpected increase in enrollment, and we think that that might indicate a pattern that the enrollment's at least stabilizing. Enrollment projections continue to be flat based on building permits, however, and birth rates, but they didn't predict that spike last year either. So we see more families moving in with parents, things like that, that data doesn't reflect. Class sizes across the board have increased for us. We have a few grade levels that are pretty close to the maximum allowable size under the policy. So we have classes 24 and 25 at several grade levels. So again, over the past 6 years, the impact of the declining revenues is that we have eliminated many classroom teaching positions. We've cut instructional support staff. The entire foreign language program that we used to be able to provide has been eliminated. Health education classes were cut. We don't have a current health education program. Physical education, that program was cut, so kids only have physical education once a week. Library staffing was reduced, so we only have part-time library staffing. The technology integration specialist was cut. There was a reduction in professional development funding for the district. Curriculum and materials were cut to zero, so there was no funding for new curriculum and materials. And the district adopted fees for transportation and band to offset the operating costs. Last year, with a 4% increase that the town provided, we were able to begin to do some rebuilding. We restored some funding to the professional development, and what we did with that was to be able to add 2 days to our paraprofessional contract and allow our support staff to participate in district offerings, so that our staff that are supporting kids that are struggling in different content areas went through the Go Math training and went through the kinds of training that we brought in for teachers so they could be more effective in their roles. We also established funding for $40,000 for new curriculum adoption. Last year, we bought new social studies texts for our 6th grade that have, they're much more educationally relevant. They have a whole online component to them. We also replaced the dated curriculum materials at the elementary level for social studies with new literature. And we were able to restore the .6 Tech Integration Specialist position. The intent of that position is to work on further developing the curriculum, building in opportunities for enrichment and challenge for students that are ready for additional coursework in the content areas through the use of technology. I just want to note with that position that we added back that we were only able to fund .6 last year instead of making it full-time. We've done 3 searches. We've interviewed a number of candidates. We have not been able to find a candidate that is willing to work .6, because that's really 3 days a week. So while we restored that position, we have been unable to fill it. I've had to use that budget money to contract out for services this year to meet some of that need. The
Is that-
oh, go
Is there
ahead.
any possibility of a shared resource for that among the towns? They must have similar problems, or no?
They have more technology support than we do, and I haven't talked to Rentham about it recently. I don't think that Plainville was interested. I could talk with them about it, but we actually really feel that .6 was our starting. We were hoping to get that back to a full-time position because we do have the need for that. So we're going to recommend increasing that position this year. One, to be able to fill it, and also because we do have, a broader need than that. So the budget request for 2015 is $10,480,872. It reflects an increase of 4.74. The request allows us to maintain services and class sizes, and again, to begin to further rebuild some of those programs that have been cut. Included in this budget are instructional support positions for reading and mathematics that we feel are really critical to ensuring student success. Those positions were cut in past budgets. We currently only have 1 reading specialist for the Freeman Kennedy School with about 600 kids. That doesn't allow us to provide appropriate academic support for kids that are struggling. With 1 reading specialist, we provide support for kids that are having reading difficulties, but we can't provide any support for written language at all, and we can't see kids with the frequency that we really need to in order to make a significant academic difference. The reading specialists also provide co-teaching, bring new resources and materials into the classroom, and as you can imagine, 1 teacher, 1 reading specialist with over 20 teachers is spread pretty thin. So we're looking to add back a full-time reading specialist position for Freeman Kennedy and to increase the time that we have of the reading specialist at the elementary at HOD, as well as increasing the developmental math position. We are also proposing to restore the health education program and increase the frequency of physical education classes. We want to bring that back to having kids have physical education twice a week, and infused in that, with that greater frequency, we can provide health education within the context of those 2 physical education classes. Obviously, we feel it's a really critical time to prepare kids and to provide them with the information and skills they need to make healthy choices as they're heading into adolescence. And we all know that there's a great deal of research out there about increased activity and the benefits that has to learning, especially at the younger ages. So our recommended budget, we have several reductions in the budget. We're anticipating 2 teacher retirements. Typically, we budget those at $25,000 per position. So you would hope to see a savings of $50,000 there. It's only $30,000 because neither of the teachers is retiring in September. So they're retiring partway through the year. So that's why that number's a little bit lower. We will be reducing the 1.5 kindergarten assistants that we added this year to offset that enrollment spike. We don't have assistants in our first grade classroom, so we can reduce that there. That's a savings of $19,625. Special education services, we have done a lot of work internally in terms of building our special education programs. We have in the past had to contract out services for therapeutic services, as well as home-based behavioral support services for families with children on the autism spectrum primarily. Through restructuring some internal positions, we've hired somebody on staff that works for us that has that content expertise and has taken over the home programming. So she is directing and supporting paraprofessionals and providing services, and so we're seeing a savings of about $22,000 next year in the therapeutic services line. Savings of about $3,000 in special education materials, and we have a savings in out-of-district placements of $192,500. So the total savings in the budget next year will be $268,680.
Those out-of-district placements are just moving up to the middle school?
4 of them are moving up. Yeah.
Your question earlier, Arlie.
Yes.
So just to help me understand that,
Yeah.
somewhere here I have a table that has a number of, that shows a $600,000 increase in KP expenses due to students moving from Norfolk. Do I have that number correct? Somewhere, sorry, I don't have it.
It depends on the student's placement.
Right.
So.
So-
That's not consistent with our numbers.
Let me dig through now.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to complete the question, if you could explain why we're not seeing the $630,000 savings in your budget.
That it
Or
doesn't match
400
the numbers that we have. We have on our books
Right.
5 students moving up, 5 students moving up to KP, and the budget savings you see there reflects the cost of those placements. I'm not sure where the discrepancy is. I would have to
Well,
further.
Perhaps different services are required.
Yeah. We're
According to the
expecting a
presentation we
savings of
just saw.
$192,000 in out-of-district costs next year.
Maybe if you could come together around that, it's interesting it would be worthwhile understanding why there is that difference or what accounts for it. That's certainly a very large increment in the KP budget, and some of those savings are indeed here. Do
Yeah.
Liz, yes, please.
Okay, so.
you want a microphone?
she's-
Sorry.
She's talking about the out-of-district.
Actually, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, so
Okay.
folks can hear your answer.
I got it.
Sorry for the
It's
interruption.
okay. If you look at, it's page 26.
don't have that.
For Norfolk, 5 students, the tuition was $412,000, and transportation's 101. That's the total out of district. Then there's in-district students that had the one-on-one. So if you're just talking the out-of-district, it's $514,326, based on the placements of those students. So there, I don't have the exact students in front of me. There could be a change of placement for a particular student. They may be in one placement and have to go to, because of the age of the student, they may be moving into a different level of a placement.
Right.
So, but we know that we're receiving, we're receiving 5 from you.
Yeah, and
Right.
I believe even within those 5, one of the students that you're receiving is moved to a much less restrictive placement at a significantly lower cost.
Okay, so those are, yeah,
So that might have
So
an
when-
impact.
right. And this was, again, this was the projected, so those are some of the adjustments that probably were.
So that's probably some of the budget.
And as Arlie mentioned, it may well be that things are more complicated at the middle school.
And they require different
require
services, and
more-
transportation costs could be different at that point.
Right.
Okay. All All right, so within the special education, we are anticipating a savings totally of $218,805. But within that savings also, we have some new costs that we're going to be absorbing, so I wanted to walk through that. We've really worked very hard over the last 3 years, and I credit Dr. Tupper for the work that she's done, really building strong in-house programs for our students that meet a broader range of needs. So we developed, over the last few years, a therapeutic program for students with social and emotional needs at both the HOD and the Freeman Kennedy School. We've developed programming for kids on the autism spectrum. And as a result, our out-of-district placements, over the last 3 years, we've only sent one child out who actually will be returning to us. Next year, we only anticipate 4 students out of district. So we've worked really hard at building internal programs for a couple of reasons. One, because we really feel that that's the best thing for kids and for families, is to be able to provide services within our own, within their home school environment. We also feel we can provide programming that's at as high a quality as anything that you'd receive in a collaborative or local placement. So with that said, we do have several students in our preschool, and we are receiving a new student next year with significant needs. They're all on the autism spectrum and have significant language impairments. Our current preschool program really wouldn't be sufficient to meet the needs of those students. So we are recommending, one, because I think it's fiscally responsible. To send 3 kids out of district would cost us about $300,000. So we are going to recommend building a new program next year for those students. We will have to staff it with a new teacher, which will be $63,365. We will also have to increase some of our other services to meet their needs. So we'll have to increase our physical therapist time by 0.1, as well as the school psychologist time by 0.1. So that's the cost of the new program. We're going to try to staff this new preschool. We're going to need 2 to 3 educational assistants in there. These kids really need one-on-one programming, but we're going to try to do that by reallocating current staff and streamlining some of our other programs. So that being said, the total net savings in special education is going to be about $138,961 next year. Budget additions, the salary step lane changes cost for teachers is $177,529. The cost of a COLA for all other staff, which would be our paraprofessional staff, custodial staff, administrative team, is $76,000. The additional 1.4 developmental reading teachers, we're budgeting at $89,749. Again, these are restorations. The 0.9 developmental math teacher, 0.4 of that will go to HOD. We have only a 0.6 person there right now. We're looking to increase that to a full-time position and add a 0.5 math specialist to the Freeman Kennedy. Cost of that is $57,188. We would like to increase the technology integration specialist by that 0.4 to make that a full-time position, as I described earlier, to help us with recruiting and also to meet the needs of the students. We would like to increase the library specialist between the 2 buildings by 0.3. Right now, library also was a position that was cut, so our library periods are only 30 minutes. By the time kids check out books, it's very limited in terms of instructional time. We really want to work on building kids' media literacy skills, learning how to do research, and we'd like to expand them to a full 40-minute block. We would like to add 1.5 physical education teachers to restore the health education program. That's a cost of $85,056. And we are also looking to add a 0.7 custodian to the Freeman Kennedy School. When we moved from Freeman Centennial to Freeman Kennedy, it's a larger building and the cleaning needs are different. We don't have carpets anywhere, so all the floors have to be washed and waxed. It takes a lot more time, and they're finding it hard to keep up with the maintenance.
Do those numbers include benefits as well?
Those include everything,
They
yeah.
do, okay.
It wouldn't
The-
include benefits.
oh,
Those are in the town budget.
No, not on the town side. I'm sorry, they don't.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's just salary costs.
That's the salary
Is
cost
that all
of the district.
benefits or just health care?
Health,
That's what I was.
over 20
all of
hours.
them. It's
Actually, you know, if I were to break it down, the 1.4, the developmental reading teacher, we're adding 0.4. She's already a teacher that's receiving benefits, so there will be no cost there. It'll be the new positions that would have a benefit cost to the town. So that would be the 1.0 reading teacher at the Freeman Kennedy, 0.5 math teacher. The technology specialist is already in the budget at 0.6, so I think you budgeted that last year. Library specialists are not new people. It's increasing their time. The physical education teachers would be new positions, so it's like 1, 2, 3.5. All right. So the increase in cost for staffing would be $552,818, minus the savings that we're anticipating from retirements and the regular ed and the special ed savings. It's an increase of $363,982. We do have some expense additions on the expense side of the budget. District-wide, it's $3,475. At H. Olive Day, we're looking at $39,220. $25,000 of that is for a technology replacement program. The Freeman Kennedy has all new equipment, all new computers. The machines at H. Olive Day are quite dated in the lab and in the classrooms. So we have developed a 5-year tech replacement plan. The first phase of that would be at H. Olive Day, so there's $25,000 in for that. The additional $10,000 at H. Olive Day in both Freeman Kennedy really reflect the increased cost of copier cartridges, ink, toner, art supplies, paper, things like that. Operation.
5-year plan intended to be a rolling 5 years, you'll do
Yes,
that
we'll-
forever?
we'll do pieces,
5-year
yes.
life expectancy,
Yep.
end of story.
Yep, and Mike could speak further to it, but we're trying to replace, yes, in phases, just to keep current.
That's old anyways. I mean, 5 years is old.
Right.
You can't go any further than that.
Well, we've
you run out
got
of
older
life.
than that running now, but you're right,
Yeah.
yes. The fixed charges, $25,000. Our food service program has run at a deficit every year. It has in large part to do with the new requirements for what can be served, and we're required to serve, all wheat products, things like that. Fewer kids are buying. Cost of the meals is more expensive. So it's been running in a deficit. We talked with the town. We pay the benefits for our food service staff out of the food service revolving fund, but it's been running in the negative for the last several years. So the fixed charges is the cost of the health benefits for our food service employees. We talked to the town about helping with that cost, and Jack had asked me to put it into our building-based budget request. Extraordinary maintenance is $20,000 for the H. Olive Day. The kitchen at H. Olive Day is 20 years old. We have a refrigerator that isn't working properly. We have a stove that isn't working properly. All that equipment, we've been bringing in service people to keep it running, but it's all long past expectancy, so we need to replace pretty much all the equipment there. Transportation, $10,000 is the cost of the third year of the contract with Holmes, the increase that is driven by the contract. Just a slide to show a breakdown of our budget allocations. 65% of the budget is professional salaries. 4% of that goes to clerical salaries. 13% is other salaries, custodial, paraprofessional, administrative. 10% of the budget is for services, so that would be transportation and other contracted services. 4% of the budget's for supplies, 1% other expenses, and 9% and 3% for tuitions. Okay.
So benefits, to the extent you pay them, are included in that
Yes.
salary
Yep.
number?
We wanted to just talk about some of the other things that we think are critical needs that we did not include in the current budget request. We do recognize that times are tight and there's, only a limited pool of money. So these are things that we still think are critical needs for the elementary district. These are all still reflective of positions that have been cut that we're not able to restore or fund at this time. Our central office, we have no clerical support in the business or the HR office. So our assistant business manager and HR director are doing all their own copying, filing, trying to keep up with certification, licensure, mailing bills. They're there till 8 o'clock at night. It's really not sustainable forever. We really need to look at adding that clerical support back, but we realize we can't do it in this coming fiscal year. The foreign language program that was cut, we still would like to restore. That would be a cost of $140,000. I'm just rounding. Both the schools, we cut clerical support from both school main offices, 0.2 from each building. Again, we would like to see that support restored. We're sharing the technology director, Mr. Yang, with the town. That actually has worked out really well for both the town side and for us. But as the town transitions to possibly a new safety building, things like that, and the technology demands change, that might not be sustainable in the future. So we've indicated that. We had looked for an enrichment coordinator to provide additional programming for kids that are ready for greater challenge. That position's $55,000. It's not included in the budget. We're hoping to pick up some of the responsibilities of that through the tech integration specialist. We would like to eliminate band and bus fees. The cost of that's $70,000. And we would like to work towards, like other districts have, making full-day kindergarten tuition free for all children. But that has a significant cost, it's $377,000. So these are things that we would like, sort of on the big picture radar, but we recognize we can't fund at this time.
A couple of questions for you on this particular slide.
Sure.
What do Rentham and Plainville do as far as kindergarten tuition? Do they have free?
Rentham charges kindergarten tuition. Their rates are competitive with us. Plainville, I would have to check. Donna, do you know if Plainville has? I think it's free in Plainville at this time. Is that true, Mike? Yes. Yes, kindergarten is tuition free in Plainville.
And the band and bus fees, do you know how that breaks down between the two, roughly?
I might
You
have
don't
that
have it.
here.
It's not worth.
The
taking
band
everyone's
fee is
time.
$100 for the beginner band, $150 for advanced band. The bus fees are $175, I believe.
No, but I meant of the 70,000.
Yeah.
How much is attributable to each,
I'm-
roughly? No idea.
I would say 50,000 is for probably bus and 20,000 for band, but I'm not precise on that. I'd have to get that for you.
And what would your top three be off this list?
Well, the administrative team prioritized, and what we tried to do was choose positions that would have the greatest impact for kids. So I would say of these positions, it would probably be, the top of the entire team is tuition-free kindergarten. We know that's probably unrealistic. But that was the top priority for the whole team. Foreign language and the wellness program would be second. And I would say probably the band and bus fees might be third.
Can you phase in foreign language, or is it 2.5 FTEs, or kind of, that's
We
the
could
critical
look at
mass?
it. That's the cost of bringing back a full foreign language program, which would begin at grade 1 through 6. We could look at strategies for phasing it, but you have to really think about how do you start it. Then do you start at the upper grades, or, so we could look at it. We are planning to study best practice and do some research on different models of providing that next year, because we do think it's important to stay competitive.
So your poor clerical person working until 8 o'clock at night isn't.
I'm sorry, I know that that's their top priority, but I have to say, to their credit, they're part of our district administrative team, and when we're looking at critical needs, they voted for free full-day kindergarten and to support the academic positions first.
Very commendable.
The other thing I wanted just to mention is that the budget does reflect what we think are the fundamental needs of the district at this time to preserve and maintain a high-quality education. But we are really working hard and have made some great progress in the last couple of years of working with both Rentham and Plainville and with King Philip as well to share resources and offset expenses where we can. So we're in the process of developing a new teacher induction program with coursework in research in educational methodology for teaching early literacy, as well as best practices in math. And we're intending to share the cost between the 3 districts and offer it to all 3 districts. We're looking at ways to offset the cost of some of the ELL services. Last year, I have to, thank Dave Raich from Plainville. We had an evaluation. He sent staff over to conduct that because we didn't have anybody certified on staff. But we're looking at the potential of sharing the training with Plainville for ELL, and also possibly sharing services if we need to provide that. As far as the fingerprinting, what we're looking into now is whether if we work together with the other 2 towns and bring someone on site to do it, it'll save us costs because we're not reimbursing for mileage for people. The sites that they have set across the state, there's a site in Bourne. We're paying people time and money to travel to get their fingerprinting done. So we meet regularly. We also meet with King Philip, and we look at ways that we can try to best strategize and share resources. All right, questions?
I missed seeing the total budget. Where was that?
That's in the other package.
Yeah. So the-
Yep, and it's in one of my slides, but the total budget is 4.74% increase, and the bottom line dollar amount was
10.4.
yeah, $10,480,872. That's a 4.74.
That's about 50 above, do we have a later budget than this, do you know?
I don't think so, that was only passed out tonight.
Did you have
So,
four?
So just to kind of
Did you
understand
have
the cost.
4.8 in originally? Because we've made some reductions.
I've got a budget, and I really don't know for sure how organized I am here, but I've got a budget that shows Dave's 10.4 million, which is a 4.25%. But has that higher increase been discussed with,
It's definitely 50 different.
Yeah, I have discussed it with Jack.
so to your knowledge, it's going to wind up in the next budget we'll see? I mean, we have not seen his final budget yet. That's going to
Oh,
be
okay.
next Tuesday.
Yeah,
so-
well, I did discuss it with Jack,
Okay.
that was what our recommendation was.
So we'll expect to see that in the budget
I would
that's
think.
presented to us.
Yeah.
'Cause-
Because that 4.25, we will not be able to fund the physical education. That was discussion we had.
A couple of questions, just in understanding all the
Sure.
numbers. Pre-K, that's totally funded by participants,
No.
or the town funds pre-K?
No, we fund pre-K salary. Pre-K has to be free for any student with a special educational need, and the pre-K program, we're required to provide programming for kids when they turn 3. So we do have some
Or
students that...
special ed when they turn 3?
Yes. So we do have some, because we have an integrated preschool, students that do not have disabilities pay tuition, but that doesn't come even close to offsetting the cost of the program. Because it's about 50% of our students in there are in there with special educational needs. And we also have many families that access the sliding fee scale for the tuition, so do not pay the full tuition.
For pre-K?
Yes. And the new pre-K program will not have any peer models in it, so we will not have any tuition revenue in that new program.
For which one?
The new pre-K that we're adding to meet the needs of the students that I discussed earlier on the autism spectrum. We have some kids coming in that have no language at this point and have significant programming needs.
Yeah.
So that will be a non-integrated preschool. So that'll be the cost funded exclusively by the schools. There is no tuition.
So in the, Freeman Kennedy, so we're going down 50 students, which is like 2 classrooms, but we're adding 2 teachers.
We're not adding any teachers.
It says we're going from 30.5 to 32.3.
The developmental reading and math teachers might be in that. They're not classroom teachers. So the instructional developmental reading position, which would be a reading specialist that provides support to the classrooms.
But wouldn't we have one less, just 6th grade class? We're going from 161 to 136.
We will. We're moving it down to first grade because we have an extra kindergarten class this year that's moving up.
Last year's 35.
Right, no, I
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
Because we're adding 2 at HOD. But then that would imply we're really adding 3 teachers.
We have
At-
2 retirements, so I believe.
No, I'm on the net increase.
Yeah. We are losing a 6th grade position that is going down. We're moving that 6th grade down to the 1st grade for the increasing kindergartners that are coming up. That position's changing in the budget. And then we are adding the instructional support positions.
So of the 32 teachers in the budget for Freeman next year, how many are classroom teachers? How many are, like, how many classes do we actually have?
It's different by grade level. Next year.
Yeah, I would expect, because the
yeah.
enrollment's all over the map.
I don't have the enrollment numbers right in front of me, but I think we have next year, I think it's 5 at most grade levels at the Freeman Kennedy, so, do you have? Yeah, I don't have it in front of me. We have, yeah, but it's going down to 5. I think we have 5 at every grade level at Freeman Kennedy next year. And then we have special education positions and therapeutic
Yeah, I assume that's
classroom.
in the student support services budget, all the special ed.
Yeah, not the reading specialists, because those are regular ed, and the developmental math is regular ed. Do you have the,
So our,
I don't know what pages. No, I'm not looking for, I was looking for the number of classrooms at each grade level. I don't have it in front of me. I believe we have 5 for each year, for next year.
Is there a, somewhere in this package, the number of teachers by class or grade or school? Is that?
There isn't in this package. I can certainly get that for you, if you'd like it.
Maybe, I don't want to interrupt Dave.
no,
If you could kind of give me a very high-level understanding of the kind of questions that sometimes come up. The trend on enrollment,
Yeah.
there's a 15% decline in students since, I guess, 2008, when you benchmarked your...
20.
Right.
well, 20%.
Yep.
From 1,083 down to 866.
Oh, I was in 14.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
so
for
there's
next
another
year.
6% this
Right.
coming year. So
Right.
we expect another 6% decline on top of the 15% to get to the
Right.
20%.
Right.
And so there's a significant, and that decline continues for the next, in the projections, in total.
That's hard to predict. I mean, we did a
Right.
projected enrollment that's based on building permits and birth
Right.
rates.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what that's looking at. Last year, based on that, we were predicting a decline, and we saw an increase to 35 kids. So it's not 100% guaranteed. I mean, we do have families moving in with grandparents, things like that. So the enrollment, we're expecting it to stay flat. It looks like on the projections like it may decline going into 2017, but I'm not sure because that's not what we're seeing in terms of new enrollment.
Well, there's a fair amount of housing being built.
Yeah.
Just to make sure I understand the numbers, and I'm sorry to get so...
No, that's okay.
Last year, there were 50 fewer students in the elementary schools than there were the year before, is that correct?
Yes,
In total.
in total.
And so, there's this 20% decline over the past couple of years that admittedly, certainly is projected to continue. And then the budget goes up by 5%. So why is it that the budget goes up by 5 when the enrollment declines by 6? And when you, again, just very high level
Yep.
for me, why is it that the salaries rise by 9%, given the decline in the enrollment? Can you just help me square those numbers?
Yeah, sure. So the decline in enrollment is distributed over all the different grade levels. So you may be losing 6 kids from a grade level. That's not enough to cut a classroom teaching position without going over your policy limit. So we have, when we looked at the enrollment projections, we made sure that we kept our class sizes under the policy limit. So next year, with the decline in enrollment and the current staffing, we're going to have classes that range from about 18 students to up to 23 students in some grade levels. So when you lose 50 students, it's spread over the distribution, which means you can't necessarily cut, positions. We did reduce the 6th grade and move it down, and we do adjust that annually, but it doesn't, 50 students doesn't mean you can cut 2 teachers necessarily, because they're spread over all of those grade levels. And in terms of the increase, we are looking to restore positions that have been cut. So the enrollment decline has happened over multiple years. So positions were eliminated. But again, as I said in the beginning, it really takes 4% of an increase to just carry forward your current staff. So we had about 6 years where we were negative, 0, negative. So the increase of 5% in the budget is our efforts at restoring those things that have been cut, like the physical education program, the reading support specialists, and those positions. So the budget increase, had we not had those difficult times and had those positions not been cut and we weren't looking to rebuild, we would have a significantly lower request. But we are trying to restore.
Over the period in which you quote the budget cuts, the enrollment declined by this 15% that I kind of focused on.
Right,
So-
and as I said, in the first year, multiple teaching positions were cut and multiple paraprofessional positions were cut. So you could offset that 150 enrollment decline in the first couple of years. But after that, we needed 3% to bring the budget forward, and we didn't have it. So additional positions were cut in the next following 3 to 4 years. So you don't get a return every year from those enrollment cuts. Does that make sense?
I think so. I just can't quite, if there was some simple, I mean, certainly, by the way, I appreciate all the detail you presented, and forgive me for trying to simplify what is a very complex picture, but is there some, I'm just struck by this difference, again, maybe just focusing on this year. 6% decline in students, 9% increase in salaries.
Right.
What?
It's the positions that we're looking to bring back.
And you need those positions because
Because-
even though you've got 50 fewer students in expectation?
Absolutely, because the positions that we're looking for, none of our kids have physical education twice a week. They all have physical education once a week. We don't think that's appropriate. That whole program was cut years ago. We don't have any health education. We don't teach kids any of the, about core nutrition, about healthy living, about exercise. We don't do any, we do the DARE program, but we don't have a curriculum-based drug prevention program. All of that got cut. So to add that program back, I need 1.5 people. To be able to offer physical education for grades 1 through 6 twice a week the way it used to be offered. So that position, even though you have a fewer students, I still need additional staffing to be able to bring back that program. The reading specialist position, if you compare the Freeman Kennedy to other districts, we have one reading specialist for 600 kids. When I was in Foxborough as a principal, I had 3 full-time reading specialists for 400 kids. So that position got cut. We've made it work, but not effectively. The way we've made it work was if you have kids that have reading difficulties or reading needs, instead of seeing them 3 times a week, you can see them once a week. You can see them twice a week, possibly. We've cut out all written language support, so that's being picked up by the classroom teachers. We can't provide that anymore. The developmental math positions, we have a new math program. It's very rigorous. There's a lot of kids that have mathematical difficulties. We provide limited support. We don't provide what many other districts do. So those positions are really programmatic needs that the district faces that are not offset by a decline in enrollment. We're understaffed for the enrollment that we have.
So would you characterize the budget and the program for this year as one of significantly enhancing the quality of education
If
at
we
the
can-
elementary school level?
Yes, I would. I think if we bring back the reading and math positions, it's going to significantly improve our programming. It's going to allow us to much better support kids that are struggling, that are not getting the services that they should be getting at this point. A credit to our staff, they're stretched thin and they do the best they can, but it will significantly improve the quality of those services. And yeah, I think that the Budget Committee and the School Committee really feel strongly about the health education program. We also know that increased physical activity has a huge benefit for kids in terms of learning and teaching good sportsmanship and all those kinds of skills that we're not able to address right now. We just have a physical education program. We don't have a health program.
Can I ask a question about KP? Since they're here? If you could characterize your budget this coming year. We just heard significant enhancement in the quality of education at the elementary schools, and you could, I think that explains the numbers to the extent I can understand them anyway. Do you have any kind of simple characterization of your budget that's comparable? Yeah, you have to get the microphone. I'm sorry, we could bring it to you. But so the background for the question is you started out in describing what I understood to be a kind of maintain services style of budget, which sounds different from a significant enhancement in quality. Is that?
We're maintaining our services so that we remain in compliance. We're not adding any positions outside of, the technology because of the needs there, and then the special ed pieces, which we've reduced as we've gone along. I mean, our class enrollment, there is a difference between elementary and secondary ed. Research shows that smaller class size up to grade 2 is beneficial for reading and math. After that, the research doesn't really indicate class size makes that much of a difference. Our class sizes are running what I consider high, although research says it doesn't make a difference, take an English class there's a big difference between an English class of 24 students and an English class at a high school of 30 kids, because the teacher with 30 essays that you have to correct in a given time frame cannot give as much information and feedback to students to improve their writing and their skill set. So smaller class sizes will be great. Our budget, we know that we're coming in to try to just keep what we have. We've been cut, as you know, my art classes, I mentioned, are running, one of our classes runs at 40 to 46 students, and we're struggling to figure out how we're going to get that higher level art piece in there with our numbers. So we do try to balance it out, and, we also highly encourage our teachers to be dual, and it's different in elementary, dual certified, so that if we have to, we split a teacher between, math and science, ELA and history. But we're just trying to keep our status quo. But I also understand the need, to improve instruction. And we see, KP sees ourselves as we're one hub on a student's pre-K to 12 adventure before they go off to college. And it's really important that the students are coming into us with the needed skills. As you know, I mentioned in our budget, we're looking at that .4 for the Unified Arts for the STEM piece, because we are seeing students that are not coming up really prepared, and the Common Core is really bumping the math levels lower. Again, algebra used to be, 5 years ago, an 8th grader taking algebra, you got a really smart algebra kid, and they're going to do well. Now, algebra's grade 7. We are obligated to get them through calculus, so it's...
Again,
I know.
I'm just trying to kind of
And
capture
right.
themes here, and is it fair to say that the budget as it's now proposed is calling for significant enhancement of services at the elementary level and status quo at KP? Is that fair to say?
I
Is that not
actually
fair?
would say that's not accurate. I think the additional of bringing back the health program is a restoration that I think would be a significant enhancement. I think the reading and math positions are critical needs that have been unfunded for 5 years. So the wellness program, I think, is an enhancement. At the same time, I think that we have to remember there is a K-12 picture. That program was cut. We don't provide health education. You have an increased number of kids with anxiety disorders, social emotional disorders, that are not making health choices, drug and substance abuse at the high school, and you're looking at a trend in terms of out-of-district placement for kids with social emotional needs that's continuing to grow, and we are not responding to that programmatically at the elementary level. I think that's not wise long-term.
Okay, thank you.
If I could just ask a question along that lines. So if I'm understanding this
Want to hold
correctly,
this just in case? I don't know.
hang over here.
when you're back in 2008,
Yeah.
let's say 2009, so certain cuts were made that then, now you have a certain amount of teachers who are left, which gets you class sizes within a certain band that can fluctuate. So
Yeah.
we're within a certain range. There are teachers who make that happen, but then gradually, because we're falling underneath your recommended 4%, so other positions which really speak to the quality of the education. So there's been kind of there's the big savings that we had from reducing to a certain bandwidth that we could teach, but then the quality of education has been degrading incrementally each year. So when you add a teacher position, the way I'm thinking of it is, a lot of the additions that are being described don't really help our class size, but they're really helping on the qualitative aspect, hence what you're
Absolutely.
talking about.
Yeah.
So it's not just a function of enrollment size, it's also a function of the
Program.
quality of the programs, which you're actually baselining back in 2009. So while we say significant improvement, from your perspective, it's still pennies on the dollar for what we had back in 2008.
Yeah, I mean, if we fund at the full 4.74, when you take into account the loss of federal and state funding, our total budget will be what it was in 2009. So significant enhancements. I mean, I think even the wellness program, we used to have that. We're talking about enhancing, but it's really bringing back what we've had for years that we've lost.
And I just want to put one thing in perspective, that 75% of our salary goes to employees, it goes to...
Classroom teachers.
It goes to teachers, which is contractually obligated. If you look at the 2 to 3% cost of living adjustment steps and raises over that period of time, which are non-negotiable, you can see that adds up over time, whereas what we're asking for is level services plus some very needed add-backs.
Yeah.
And I will say that the health and wellness is an initiative that I'm very well focused in. I think it's absolutely absurd that kids at this age actually can only do PE for 1 day a week. That just really blows my mind. So I really think that that's important, and I hope that the committee recognizes that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I also think that it's important that the only reason we're even able to consider restoring any of the positions is because of the work that we've done in special education programming. Again, we have built in the last several years 4 new programs to keep kids in district that would have otherwise gone out. So we're only expecting to have 4 kids out next year. I think KP will realize that savings moving forward because we're keeping kids in-house by adding programs and developing programs. So I think that that's really a critical piece. We've worked really hard to manage costs to be able to bring back the quality of education that we were able to provide, prior to the recession.
Which actually speaks to one comment that I wanted to make, and that's, you were talking about themes early. The numbers that are presented for the Norfolk Public Schools, while you're adding that one program for 100K to prevent from spending 300K with the additional students.
And again, for preschool,
Right.
it's 300K for next year it would cost, but usually if you send kids out, they're out for multiple years. So building that program can allow us return savings.
That will end, but that doesn't, that's a very different, but your overall theme isn't that. Your overall theme to me is the qualitative restoration, whereas when I look at King Philip, and again, this is not my area of expertise, to me, the overall theme is try very hard to keep everything constant to absorb the explosion in special education costs. I mean, there's slide after slide after slide that add, if my math based on the figures, if you take out special education, we're talking about maybe a 2.5% increase. Special education adds for everything else, which doesn't look like there's any way to hedge against that in the way that the Norfolk school system is
I think
describing.
that they're looking to build some new programs
Continue to build programs.
so that they can see that savings. And I think with us working on it as well, in the long term, we're going to see some savings there. But yes,
Anyway, those are just my
that's-
comments. So, thank you.
After all those big picture questions, a small picture question.
Yes.
The unexpected 35 this past fall, do we have any indication yet whether that was a spike or whether that's going
We
to be-
believe that was a spike. What we did to respond to that was we moved our kindergarten registration timeline up to January. It had been in March. Currently, we have 84 students enrolled for kindergarten for next year, which is more consistent with the past. We always have additional enrollment, so we'll probably pick up, I expect we'll end up with 96, 97, because we have people that move over the summer, people that don't register. But that's much more consistent with what we've had in past years. So it looks like last year was a spike, but we could be surprised again with late enrollment, but we're not expecting that. We did move the timeline up to help us better plan in terms of the budget.
On the out-of-district, so you said there's only 4 kids in the out-of-district for next year, and we must have had 9 this current year since 5 are going up to 7th grade?
Yep.
Okay, but the 9 cost us $225,000 for transportation, but the 4 are going to cost $185,000?
It depends on where kids are going. And we, I'd have to look at exactly where those placements are. And we had a change in contract with vendors with BICO that has actually ended up costing, it saved other districts money because they have a multi-vendor route now, but it actually ended up costing us more.
Yeah, I would definitely look at that, because I can't imagine it's going to be
Yeah.
$45,000
Some of the kids
per
going up,
student.
though, maybe in local placements and collaborative placements, so their transportation cost isn't huge. I'm not sure. I'd have to look deeper at those numbers.
Actually, just to give you some perspective, I just signed a warrant a couple hours ago for some transportation costs, and the location, the distance for those schools that they go to is
extensive.
significant.
And the problem that we have, we contract with BICO, so if we only have one child going, then, and it's a single route, then we're paying the full cost of the route, so we're not sharing it. So it really depends child by child in the placement.
More questions? It looks like we're all set then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your
Thank you.
taking the time, especially after a meeting before this. and
That's okay, we're
Time of night.
on a roll.
Thank you.
I don't know how to
That's okay, I'll just shut this off.
That'll shut off for you.
Like those pictures, yeah.
Exactly. Especially the one with the leopard hanging on the...
Are we ready to start the warrant now?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan, what do we got scheduled for next Tuesday?
It's Wednesday, right? Isn't it
Wednesday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday on the brain.
Pat's got Tuesday on the brain.
It's because it was Tuesday.
You do
Well,
it.
right
Only
now-
you'll have to do it without me.
Only to you, though. See, no one else knew about this.
it was Tuesday.
Yeah, there you go, see?
So last week we changed it to Wednesday?
It was.
Yes.
And then I think.
Oh, last week
the
we
last
changed it to
minute we
Wednesday,
changed
all
it.
right.
Yeah.
All
To be
right.
consistent with.
I've
our
only had
forward
it,
schedule.
yeah.
Pat, we don't have anything specifically on because we were waiting to see what we got through tonight.
Well, we have Jack.
But now,
Yeah.
Jack has to come in.
Yeah, can we have a warrant? Because
Jack is back.
I don't know if is there much enthusiasm for tackling we can tackle on the warrant tonight, or since we have a
We
light
can do-
agenda?
Yeah, sure.
We can do some of them.
Let's see what we
But
can
we
do.
can knock out some, I think, Pat.
All right.
Because, as an example,
I'm game if everybody else is game.
can we jump in anywhere?
Can we
All right,
Yeah,
Article
pick
24.
Deep end.
Article 24, I believe we deferred that one last time because we didn't have the amount.
Okay.
Yep, we did.
Now they have it. It's, no,
Yep.
not Jane and
Oh, no,
Paul's, the
open
little one.
space and rec plan, yeah.
Yeah, so
And-
now they
and-
have it. It's 17,000.
25, the same thing, right?
Yes, and so, I think we did 25.
Did we approve
Yeah.
25?
We approved 25, that's ours,
Because we
yeah.
had the number.
So anyway,
Hey.
I move we approve Article 24.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we approve Article 24.
So this one, again, we're gonna, which one are we using here for?
This is updating.
Open space reserve.
Open
Okay.
space plan,
Yeah,
trail maps.
Yeah.
but they can update automatically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, this one seemed like a great
It
idea.
sounds like yeah, we ought to know how much land we've got.
we had discussed, I think we were only lacking a number, so.
Right.
Yeah, I'm writing.
No further discussion on this? Nope. None, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
So,
Opposed? There are none opposed. Al, did you vote on that? I didn't hear an aye from you.
Susan was around.
I think you said aye, so I saw the nod.
No, I was in agreement with it. I'm
All right.
sorry, I
So
wasn't listening.
Is that an aye from you also? Then it is unanimous. Okay.
And who's
Yeah,
doing
see?
that? Who's writing that up?
All right, what else you got, Dave?
I'll be writing
We
that up,
assigned those all, right?
and I'll pass those through
4-2.
to whoever can read
Next,
them.
next
Budget,
one,
can't go capital,
I'll
no
jump
capital,
to, number 9, the capital.
Jeez, you're all over the
I
place.
know.
I know. No, no, well,
Wait, yeah,
let me,
Keeps it moving, David.
I gotta propose the number, so back to the sheets Jack passed out.
Yes, Jack.
Which one are we,
All right,
which
so
year
this
are
is the green and brown one.
We don't have a green and
I'm
brown
gonna
one.
put that in my
No,
minutes.
no, this one.
The
The green and brown heading, little headings.
Oh, here it
Yeah,
is.
put that in the, in the minutes. The green and brown sheet was approved.
The cars.
No, it's
Oh,
the
yeah.
vehicles and the couple other things, so,
How about a dollar amount?
yes.
Why do
So,
we need more
400.
I was in here for that.
they
We need
need
more
3
tape?
more, actually, I do know the answer to this
Okay.
one. They need 3 more to complete the department, so that,
Oh, everybody
yeah,
has
so
one?
that everyone has one,
Right.
yes.
So the kids can have them in the
Yes.
elementary schools.
So the idea was that this would all be debt-funded, so I move we approve Article 9 to fund capital purchases of $481,800 with debt.
Seconded.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we approve Article 9 with the constraint of the number $481,800, which will be the motion, not the article. So,
And does someone ask, do police cars really cost $90,000?
Yes.
For 2.
That's
It's
for 2 of them.
That's 2.
Okay, so
Yeah, it's
2?
45.
The
is
bargain.
Wow. So the cars, like about 30, I think, 30 to
no,
35, and
that's
then there's
fine.
like
Yeah,
10K of
yeah.
equipment, 10 to 15 of equipment. No, there's 2 of them. That was a late change, I think he forgot to add that to the note there. He had 3 was what they would like,
Wish list.
Sure.
but we agreed well, he actually started with 1,
2
and the
sedans
committee
is what
pushed
I
to
have,
say you should
so.
get 2, because we don't have that many
can.
new police cars.
And how many did we buy last year? 3.
3, and then the year before that, 2.
How many more?
And then we went like 2 or 3 years we didn't buy any.
Right, right, I remember.
So,
So 2 is like
so
the
we currently
steady
have
state, right?
5, yes.
That's what
The
it
idea
should
is
be every year,
2
yeah.
should get you, if we could do 2, that would over a 4 or 5 year period, you'd have 6 or 7 good ones on the road, and then you'd have backups that could work it, so. So we just got to stick with getting 2 each year. And avoid the
Further
zero.
discussion on Article 9?
Yeah, does Olive Day opine on the sprinkler system?
We didn't get into that with them in particular.
I think
Jack
that's a
portrayed that
problem
one
that
pretty easily.
The
yeah.
fire chief brought to their
Yes,
attention.
yeah,
I
it's
don't
not
think
the
it's
school
something they
pushing it,
want.
actually.
It's our fire chief saying
Yeah.
that we better do it.
I mean, the school's not opposed to it, obviously, but, and would want it done, but the fire chief is also in conjunction really pushing that this needs to get done. So I would somewhat call it a combined town and school.
Is it a new system?
Yeah.
Or is it a replace
I
the
guess
old system?
they were also approved for, what, 35%, 35,000 from a previous article.
Yeah,
So
so
it's,
how-
this
That's
is
more
the
the
addition
funding.
of 75 for the total,
The
correct?
whole project will cost 110.
Yeah,
Okay, and
that's-
they're going to identify 35 by reducing the appropriation from a previous capital article.
How are they going to do that?
That'll be in the.
In our motion?
Yeah,
Motion,
okay,
yes.
yeah.
Dave, do you know if this is a brand-new system that they never
That
had
I don't-
before, or replacing an old system?
No, I think it's a replacement. I think there is some form of a
Yeah, I would think
sprinkler
there would have
system.
been.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
the school's not that old.
Yeah.
It's
No, it
like
isn't.
20 years old, yeah,
I think it's a replacement.
Okay.
yeah.
So I've never heard of replacing sprinkler systems. I mean, but I
Upgrade maybe is the better word,
Upgrade?
yes.
The rules have changed?
You wouldn't think, and, well, who knows, but.
Too bad you weren't here, you could have
Yeah,
asked.
I know, I'm sorry
Yeah.
I was late, yeah.
Do we want to defer,
Well, we could hold on to that, well, we could,
so you can ask those questions of Jack on
just ask him.
Wednesday? Wednesday, not to be confused with Tuesday?
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't here, so if you guys are satisfied with it, I will defer to you, but I'm,
I'm fine with it.
That was the explanation that I got.
I'm fine
is
with
that
it.
It was a recommended
Yeah.
Yeah.
replacement,
I think,
especially
yeah, it
for
was
fire
pretty
chiefs,
much-
too. and-
So 35,000 we approved last year?
No, not for the fire, it was the playground.
Something else,
Equipment
yeah.
purchase, the playground upgrade.
Oh.
They didn't spend it all.
But this is coming, or maybe it was the fire alarm system had to be replaced or something. Maybe I'm mixing the
I
emergency.
recall that as well.
That was
There was
the-
a-
I
remember the
recall
fire
that as
alarm?
well,
There was a
right.
At the middle school?
No, I thought it was HOD.
At the HOD, last year, I believe, there was a heating something that was replaced, that was a fire issue.
you want to,
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
sure, why don't you ask him, I mean, well, maybe
it's a
if
town
it's-
thing anyway, I think, as she said, it's coal and,
So this is left over for $35,000 from the playground?
I mean, if you want
All right.
to sweep them back in, we could do that.
Like I say, I'm sorry I wasn't here. If you guys
I
are
know.
satisfied with the explanation, it seems like a lot of money for something that I would have thought was
Well-
already there and seemed probably work perfectly, but I'll defer.
I mean, if the mover is willing to withdraw the motion, let's just
Yeah, I
ask
can wait till
Jack.
Jack, yeah, we can wait till Jack.
We'll ask
I'm
Jack.
willing to withdraw the motion.
And the second's withdrawn.
Okay.
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 I move that we pass Article 10 to,
Wait a second.
Jumping
Procedurally,
back on.
okay, just withdrawing a motion, yeah, we don't need to do anything. You withdraw and it's
Yeah.
done, okay.
Well, and he,
and I withdrew the second.
second, yeah.
Okay,
Which we still don't know if we have to do that, but just for safety.
just to be on the safe
Yeah, we
side.
need a Robert's rules, right?
So are we okay with, okay, so I move that we...
Article 9 is a hold.
Yes.
Um,
I move that we pass Article 10 to authorize the proposed road funding schedule in the total amount of $344,123 to be divided between debt and Chapter 90 money as indicated in the schedule.
I think he's going to use chapter, you're
the road
including,
one.
I don't think you need to include the
Yeah, your
chapter 90
motion
money.
should
I don't,
just be for
okay,
the
so
debt.
$285,023.
Yeah.
285.23.
It's
Been
second.
moved as amended and seconded. We have a second. Any discussion of these items?
Great to see something happening.
Here-
I'm excited, I hope it sets a
Yeah,
precedent.
one thing, so I had mentioned at the capital committee meeting, conceptually, if we could
That is
spend
Article
about
10, right?
300 a
Yes.
year, or 250-ish, depending on interest rates, and if you fund that over
Yes, road
10
funding.
years or so, you're gonna incur about 30 grand a year, so over a 10-year period, we would effectively work back into the budget, the road program we had before, because then one debt funding would fall off and another one would come on.
That's
But
what
you'd have
a
a
lot of
10-year
towns are doing
build-up.
that now.
Yeah,
They're-
what's that?
You'd have
There's always
10-year
operating
build-up.
room.
Yeah, but you'd have a 10-year build, yeah, exactly.
Right.
Right.
And
Falling
particularly because
off when
everybody
they start
kind of
to-
fell
No,
off the
until year 11,
bandwagon of
yeah.
fixing roads for 5 years or so. So a lot of towns are now doing that, borrowing money to offset or to complement the Chapter 90 money to get the roads back where they should be,
Yeah.
had they kept up with it all those years.
Well, with interest at 3%.
Right.
Right.
Problem's going to be in 5 years when interest rates go back up,
Right,
or
then
less
what?
than
They've
5
been
years.
down a long time.
But,
Right.
yeah, but,
So these
I mean, unless we're going to do an override at some point, there's no other way we're going to get the roads.
Right. I remember there was an override a number of years ago for just this purpose. I think it was $200,000 and it went down.
300.
Was it
Oh,
300,000?
no, to
It was
transfer to the road repair.
Right, and it went down by a small number of votes.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do?
So if
Further discussion? Oh, sorry.
it's such a good idea, why don't we do more of it? I mean, why don't we,
Well, you
I
got,
think
because
that's
you
Dave's
got to fund it
proposal.
in the operating.
Yeah, it's got to stay within levy.
So if you said, hey, let's do 3 million all at once, because that would be the 300,000 on an annual base, to pay back, you
no, I
choke
understand,
off
yes,
your operating
right.
budget in 1 year.
That
Here
makes
you
sense.
can, I think over time, 30K on a 30 million budget, that should not.
I'm just looking for a small stretch of road right in front of my house. I'm
couple of
thinking,
bumps.
You need to petition the,
hardly anything.
you need
I
to
heard
petition the
you
Chapter
whine about
90
that.
neighborhood money.
Me too.
I drove down that road sometime after you last complained about it, and I was thinking, what's Early complaining about? This is a good road.
Arlie, your voice would be most welcome on the Capital Committee.
Yeah. Shortly, when I was on the capital committee, they dissolved it, so and perhaps it was you, Rick.
No absence is appreciated. I don't know.
Now, those roads on the other side from you, going down the hill there.
Yeah.
are a
Fruit
different
Street.
story, But anyway.
Okay, all
So-
right, fine. It's a good
so-
start. The betterment
In my
aside.
backyard, discussions notwithstanding, any further discussion about these? No? All in favor of this Article 10?
10.
Say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Got an abstention?
Oh, because it's the
Because he's
roads.
on Lake Street.
That's right.
Butter.
By the way, have the selectmen voted on that? Did we hear what the selectmen thought about this one?
I believe they're in,
They,
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yes,
Did
they've,
something about that.
yeah.
they were part of the big discussion around Lake Street being,
Yes, they've had, they've
so
had.
I don't know if
public
there's,
hearings
if they've
on
had a
it.
final vote, but they've been involved with developing the candidates for,
I thought
what's
the
being
only thing
proposed.
that Jack brought forward tonight that he wasn't quite sure
Was
about
the
with the
water.
selectmen was the water service
water.
vehicle.
the truck,
so.
yeah,
Okay.
the fancy truck.
Right.
100,000.
Okay. So they have voted? We just don't.
Except for that, the water
I'm not
truck,
sure. The water.
they haven't.
Okay,
The water truck hasn't been voted by the selectmen.
okay. But everything else has?
Well, I don't know that, but he indicated
Right.
that
Okay.
his problem of these things he brought
he
forward.
believes that this is firm. So,
Thank you.
What else we got here? So, where are we? We're in the discussion of Article 10, right? And now...
No, we.
No, we actually voted.
We-
That's
we
that's
approved
done.
it.
All right, okay.
One abstention, the rest unanimous.
That's right. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's, but we got that far, and
That's
then we
right, I'm
discussion.
sorry.
I didn't
That's
ask for no votes, did I?
Right. No, you
So
haven't.
we had all in favor, one abstention, and now all opposed. None, okay. I knew there was something dangling on that article.
Can I ask a question?
There we go.
Has this 7 just gone away now?
Yes.
We IP'd it, I know, but I thought
No,
it would
I think he wants
reappear.
to just IP on.
Right.
Jack's moving the money, the
The operating
expenditure to
budget.
the operating budget.
That's our
It's a lesser
understanding.
amount than that now.
Okay.
That's required.
Okay, thank you.
It's
Yep.
gone down and it's gone.
All right, so we're down to, if we want it for tonight, we're left with Jane and Paul's and accepted public ways, but I don't, is there money in the Jane and Paul one yet? I don't know.
Not that I've
so,
seen.
no.
No.
Wait a minute, what number is Jane and Paul?
26.
There seems to be some money there.
There's money, 300,000.
Oh, there it is, sorry. It was,
Yeah, the money's all in.
Money's in.
it wasn't written in numbers, so. It snuck right by me with the,
I'm with you. If I don't see it in a
I
table.
needed some zeros.
Buried
I was
number
looking
in,
for all the zeros, and
buried
there
numbers
weren't
in
any.
text, and I don't.
Yeah, I know, the precision in some cases is really impressive.
Okay. All right, well, there are numbers, and it looks like it's in shape to be voted.
24, yeah? No, 26.
So it's,
26.
so we're saying, what is it, 2,050,000?
2 million.
That's what
Believe.
I'll move to
I have
approve
to- do I
Article
add that up?
26.
Do I have to add up the 3?
1.7.
Okay, so 1.7.
Or is it 1.7 in total?
In
Sorry.
total.
1.7,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
just,
It's
gotcha,
1.7.
how they are.
Oh, and then that's where they're
350.
taking it out.
Right, taking it
Yeah.
out of
They
the
take it
accounts.
down.
I second it.
So that's 200,000 higher than the 1.5 estimate we got earlier.
Been
but-
moved and
I
seconded.
think we got 1.7, didn't we?
Yes.
Moved, seconded.
Motion and second on Article 26. Discussion.
It was 1.5 and 600 or 700 from the state. Was
And a
the-
couple
what he had
hundred
said.
from,
Okay,
and a
all
couple
right,
hundred from the
okay.
farmer that buys it.
That goes to the,
So in the event that the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources Preservation Restriction Program fails to fund, then the town does not proceed with the acquisition.
Couldn't. Wouldn't have enough money.
That is my understanding, yes.
Well, they could always borrow the money. I mean,
I guess there would be one scenario in which it could go ahead, and that is if Jane and Paul agreed to a price of 1.7 million.
right, right,
They do say not to exceed, so
right.
Then
it's capped.
we would not need the state money in that situation.
Are we discussing or? is it-
Actually, 1.9
Rick made a
million,
motion. Did someone second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded, yes, we are in the
Sorry.
discussion
We're well into
phase
discussion.
of the vote right
Lost
now.
track of this second.
So you're saying that we, should they not fund it, this Massachusetts department, then the article says the acquisition is contingent on that. So it seems to me the lack of funding means that even if Jane and Paul could come to the town and say, "Ah, okay, gosh, I'll take 1.7, then the town would not be authorized to proceed if this.
They seem
Article
pretty
ten.
sure of themselves. It
He
didn't seem to
does.
be a risk that they were concerned about.
They've been in
but it's just-
discussions.
So you're
There might not be a risk. 'cause
You're right, under the
it's
terms of this
contingent on
article,
it, So if the other one doesn't come through, it all
we'd
goes
need a
away
new,
by
we'd need a
default.
new article. You're right,
Yeah,
Arlie,
yeah.
you're right.
Okay, so sometimes there's a time limit on these things, right? And so, right, because if there is an offer, the town has a certain number of days to match it. But is that not what's
No,
going on?
that's
That's
not the
case
case.
here. That's if,
not the case. This has been,
Third party is making an offer to another third party, and we want to
Okay.
step in the shoes of the other
Right,
third
right,
party.
right, right,
Yeah,
right. So
yeah.
it's not as if we'd lose an opportunity to
No.
acquire if we failed to pass this, or sorry, if it was failed to be funded by the state, it would.
You'd have to wait to the next, you could submit a new article at the next town meeting.
Right.
To fund it in a different way.
Are you thinking there's a way to state it differently that would be better, or?
No.
Just want to
Okay.
No, he
understand,
was just
Understand
trying to
that
see, yeah.
just want to understand
logistics.
what it meant.
but it's a good point. The contingency really doesn't need to be there, does it?
No, I think that's the intention.
Yeah, I agree. It was just certainly
Yeah.
described to me as a partnership, and this is
Right.
how we made it happen, the cheapest way for the
Right.
town to do this, all this stuff. So I
But that contingency just prevents us from cutting a different deal, basically. Should the,
mean, he did sound pretty confident, but yeah, I think it is contingent, and if something happens
so given
in the
that it's-
various budgets, then it might not be
Might not
able to, even if the town passed this
Right.
motion, it may not be able to act upon it.
Right. And we may have to pass up 1.7. Of course, the probability of it getting knocked down to 1.7 versus.
No,
God
we
only
couldn't,
knows
we
what
could
the-
not proceed. This is a
I'm just
contingent.
saying it's a low probability scenario anyway.
Yes, it's a low probability that that the state will not fund it.
No, low probability that the price would drop to 1.7.
Even if it fell, the language of this would prohibit.
What I'm saying is that if the contingency were not there, that it would still be a low probability
Right. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
that we could do it.
Okay.
So, anyway, okay, so have we pounded this one to death?
Well, I don't know, I'm sure I'm in the vast minority, but
I don't think
I'd
so.
rather not, I wouldn't spend the money on this. I would let them sell it to whoever they want to, for whatever price, especially if it's theoretically worth more than this.
Out of curiosity, on the basis that the transaction doesn't seem economically advantageous, or just not?
No, I don't know, it's a piece of land in the middle of neighborhoods, so,
Well, actually, you're preserving a farm that probably has some history in the town, and it's open space in the town. It can't be developed
Yeah.
for the lifetime of the property,
We
so.
have lots of open space.
I think David's saying the placement is lame
They-
from his
you know,
perspective.
Maybe I'm prejudiced because it's right up the street from me, and I
Maybe just
Well-
a little.
If any, again,
right
similar
up
to,
Stay.
similar to the
House
people who
figures.
have the Weaver property in their backyard,
Yeah.
hey, that's a great purchase for the town, or
Yeah.
the people
Yeah,
that
you
were
get access
interested
to
in
that property
the,
that you don't have access to.
Yeah, but
or
if-
the one that.
It's worth
at
it just for
least-
that, right?
Yeah.
The commission seemed to feel strongly this was part of their plans. This is
Yeah.
on their top 1 or 2 items for decades.
Oh, I.
So we were
don't
going to do a
doubt that.
calculation of the potential loss to the town of putting the town away, right? Isn't that what we
Right.
discussed last time?
Yeah,
Right.
that was part of my write-up explanation or whatever.
So if it's 70 acres, you could go
have
conservative.
those-
But, I mean, what's,
40
you know,
houses.
I haven't drawn that up yet, but basically, the minimum building size in the town is, what, is it 2 acre
No, 1
minimum?
acre.
One.
It is 1?
Right.
Yeah, I figured. like,
But even
40
if you want to
lots is
go,
pretty
you
good.
could go smaller. It's 70 acres, but let's say only 40, you could get 40 buildable lots. So that's 40 houses.
There is some wet
Ten-
in there, too, but,
No, the stuff that's wet, they have already sold to be developed, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah. It's basically the farm.
Yeah, I figured
just
the property's
farmland,
worth
so-
$6 or $8 million bucks.
Yeah. If you could do 40 lots, right, you're well at 6 plus, so,
Yeah.
but.
And
I
just
could
multiply it times 2.5 kids, and what does a kid cost per pupil
I
cost?
figured the taxes.
oh, yeah, no, that's
It's not
right,
going to cost us
exactly.
anything
There's-
because
there's a lot
we're
of
rapidly
costs.
losing those 2.5 kids. We need to replenish our
figure that
2.5 kids.
It's 100 kids. Call
Otherwise,
it
we'll never justify the
4
budget for the
teachers,
Norfolk Elementary School.
$300,000.
9%.
Taxes on 40 houses
I know.
and 15 is 600 grand, probably
I would say it's,
300,000, at
yeah,
least 300,000.
300 to
a year.
400,000 a year. of
Profit.
real
What's,
estate
and what's the
taxes.
percentage with disabilities that potentially, would be going into the school? What were they
Right.
saying, about 11%? So you got to factor that all into it.
And that's what the
so.
schools are facing, the better school systems, like, it used to funnel into Dedham, it's coming this way, we used to funnel into Dedham, then Norwood, and Walpole, and now it's coming down here and in Foxborough, and, so they're looking for better school, and, who blames them? They're looking for good school systems that are gonna fund, their kids with special needs.
Sure.
And I think we're right on that target now. So that's, you can see that by the numbers. I mean, look at the percentages that you brought up, the percentage of kids with special needs.
That was shocking to me to
is.
understand the percentage is kind of an average.
Which seems to be the urban
Yeah.
that they quoted. I wonder what the rural is. She didn't say for suburban communities.
Well, it was-
She said urban communities, it's like 17%.
Norfolk, it's 7, well, you said 7, about.
1 and 7, 1 and 7.
About
And her
14%.
comment was that that's a little low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Compared to
What?
urban settings.
Compared to an urban setting,
I
yeah.
wonder about a
The
different
average
comparison.
too, I think, so. I mean, even if it's 12, 1 and 8, and
It's
still, it's
high.
mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is.
Incredible.
And it's.
None of which has anything to do with buying Jay and Paul's Park.
It does, in a way.
corners,
We're
I
talking
love
about
the
building
apples.
houses and having kids in
Well,
those
but where
houses.
some people
But
have
the
talked
cost of
about the
education?
economic value
Still
of
watching.
perhaps developing these as properties. I mean, isn't part of CPC not just to have open land anywhere, but to have open land that's reasonably contiguous or located so people in Norfolk can be around where they live and walk and drive?
Well, this has to
Have
be
you
an
ever walked
operating
up
farm.
Cleveland Street?
It's not fun.
Yeah, you're going to get killed.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, first of all, you're going to fall into a hole, and you probably never get out of the hole.
It's the only
And then
walk
the
you're
cars
gonna
come
take.
streaming by, and you'll be smudged flat. Stick your head up out of the hole, but that's...
Well, don't forget, this will be owned by a
No,
farmer.
there's- just
I
to be
don't
clear,
bike
there's-
it, I don't walk it, I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
there's no one going to be walking around Jane Paul's 70 acres here.
Right, this is not open space, this is a privately owned
Yeah.
farm.
Right, and it could have barbed wire all around it.
Privately
you know.
owned,
Interesting.
With pigs.
Big farm. I heard that.
so. Now, the night that
Winter
the,
Showway.
the night that
You're gonna
the,
be,
Out my way.
you're gonna be
Sorry.
wishing for those 40 houses.
They used to have cattle, I remember. I remember the
he
cattle.
was here that night, I asked if there was any, if anybody had encountered any opposition. 'Cause it seemed to me like there was just basically a tidal wave in favor of this, and I think that'll happen at town meeting.
I think so, too.
Here that there was.
My position is, I don't care.
Yeah.
So I'm going to vote for it because it's nice space, the town seems to want it, works for me. But
I wonder how this fits under the I guess I wish I'd thought of that to ask them while they were here.
Well, it'll be open, space because nobody can build on it. I mean, it won't be open space in the technical sense.
can't walk.
that-
It'll have
can't go in there,
restrictions on it
but
for the
it'll be-
life of
But
the
you can't
property.
build on
It
it.
can never
Private
be
property.
developed. It
Feels
always
like
has
we're
to be
land banking,
farmland.
not open spacing, you know?
Right,
I
because the
just-
farmer owns it.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
It's still private.
Right.
Yeah.
But this was the historical budget that they're spending this out of, right? Out of the three budgets? No, it's open spaces?
Open
Historical.
space.
No, it's the
Little
general
designated.
Oh,
Yeah, it's the
It
general.
has some relevance to all of the categories.
undesignated reserves is the bulk of it.
Okay.
And the other big piece is,
So explain to me how land has historical,
Because it's been a farm for a very long time.
exactly.
just land. It's just, so land, that qualifies for history, just land.
You're back
Is
there.
the use of the
Fine,
fan-
guys, I know where the town is going to go.
Your
Arlie's
backyard
coming with- listen, I
Doesn't
have
your
some
backyard
historical
have any
land.
historical significance?
I'm back in 25 years.
I've got stories about this
Maybe
place.
I'll-
This is, the town will treasure this rock. All right, I mean,
Look at Plymouth Rock.
Geez,
We'll
I'm
take
there.
pictures of
Do we
that.
mo-
Can we rebuild Lake Street with our historical reserve?
I wish we could, but.
Is it that old?
I mean, I think the other piece of it is, there's not going to be another piece of property in this town that is anything like this one, is there? I mean, what about the old airport? Who owns that?
The homes,
Is that privately
homes
owned?
property, at some point.
Homes, yeah. Talk to me in the year 3000.
Well,
about
yeah,
that
maybe a
one.
while, but it's a significant
Yeah.
parcel.
It could happen. The day might come, however many generations, but
Right.
it could. By which time, this will be back up to 7 or 8 million. Right? Because there'll be nothing else to spend it on in the ensuing
approve this?
15 or 20
No.
years. Okay,
We're waiting for the vote.
further discussion. All in favor of approval of Article 26? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
So,
Okay.
So we have 2 noes, yes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yes, 2 no? Good.
and I absolutely know where the town is going to be on this, so that was a purely sacrificial vote, but.
It's important to vote your
You feel
principles.
good. You always
But
come
you're
back.
going to
Stretch
explain,
vote
you're
last
going to
week?
explain the economics of this, right? That was your commitment.
Well, I'll put it in writing and
You'll explain that 300,000.
Every house we built in this country in the last 12 years.
I move that we approve Article 11 to create the capital accounts for King Philip to perform the described projects of the disposal and the lighting savings.
I'd actually like to see them more put together, because this,
like.
well, they're taking the other one off, right?
Concept
So it's
of
really
that.
just
That
the
one's
one
coming
thing.
off.
Never mind.
What is the
No, no.
language you're approving now?
It's the
Revised.
the draft.
Correct.
All right, I
That
second,
lighting
I forgot, they
scenario?
took off, they're taking off
and
the
it comes
other
out
one.
of there.
Where is that?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
this
yeah.
language, right? Where,
Yes, it's just,
What they
we're
passed
down
out
to,
tonight.
yeah, we're down to just the,
all right, well, let me
Sanitary line
just
repairs.
caveat that, because this is revised language draft, it says. So,
So it might
Is
not
it
be
final?
a.
we want, I mean, as long as, it's- or we are just going to say, as long as the final is
yeah, I think
substantively the same?
if it changes again, we'll.
Isn't it, it is
Then
kind
we
of,
reconsider.
it is kind of odd language, right? When do you say that you're going to vote to authorize the KP
Well, this
to
was-
establish to the extent permitted by the laws of the county? What?
Well, you
what does
wouldn't
that
want it to
mean?
be the extent not permitted, now would you?
Don't you say required? I mean, what does that even?
They just got this from the attorney, I think. so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is hot off the press of council.
Right, that's what I
Furthermore,
understood.
it's to the
it
extent
be.
permitted by law.
Yeah.
Right, 3 lines later, it's to something's to the extent permitted by law, so they're really making sure that we're not violating any laws here.
Well, it's interesting, because, yeah, it sounded like it was more the legal counsel didn't like that previous capital projects had just been.
Right.
Right, that we needed to now explicitly
Yeah, that-
authorize
that
them
they
on
need
a
the towns to do
project-by-project
this,
basis.
Which again, does seem odd, because, whatever, they're not asking for money, so
Well, we have a motion to approve.
I seconded it.
It's seconded. Further discussion?
Let me just say, I predict that someone's going to find this to be completely unnecessary after we pass it, but I certainly think someone thinks we should pass it.
It seems like it ought to be unnecessary.
They have spent so much money, capital funds. This has never happened before, but
Right.
maybe there's progress in the world. And
It ought to be, by any sane standards, it ought to be unnecessary, but hey, they
Let's
found a
jump to the-
lawyer.
yeah, they found a lawyer.
Yep.
No offense to any lawyers in the room.
We're watching.
Yes.
At home on TV.
Okay,
Illegal
moved and
channel.
seconded, further discussion. All in favor of passing Article
11 as revised.
11 as will be restated, and we might state we are relying upon the assumption that the restatement will be as indicated or substantially as indicated to us. Obviously, we can reconsider if that changes. So with that caveat, any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Anybody got anything else? Al's looking at that clock.
Public ways, we can't do that yet.
Public ways we can't.
Or that.
37's way off the map, so.
Yep.
So that's it.
All right.
Is that it?
That's it. So that will leave us with the budget, the water, except public ways, and the new rec building police / building purchase.
And possibly a capital cash,
Cash.
depending on the waters.
The water
Oh,
capital.
that was what you meant by the water.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't do
Alrighty
capital
then.
debt either.
No,
Nice.
oh, yeah.
Yes, we
and the-
did.
yeah,
Oh,
no.
no, we withdrew it.
Yeah,
Right,
we're gonna,
right,
we're gonna do that one next
We
week,
have to
too.
approve the minutes, I think.
No,
We
we did
did.
that.
Oh, we did, okay,
We
sorry.
approved Well, as far as I'm concerned, we're done.
Motion adjourned?
Second.
Moved and seconded that we adjourn. Any discussion? No, no discussion on this one. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. We are adjourned.
We are adjourned, okay.